morning. I'd like to call this work session of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 29th day of November, 2018. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Our Deputy Clerk, Kim Otadi, is here. I ask you, Kim, to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Here.
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilwoman Sclair. Councilman Boovy.
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum. Jim Burke, is he coming or not in?
He's coming.
He'll
I'm
be
sitting
here.
in.
Martha Reichert,
Right.
Town Attorney, Assistant Town Attorney is here. So, all right, we are going to start today with a discussion about, I think, plastic straws and styrofoam and other waste. So, Julie, do you want to introduce this? I know you've been working on this topic, so.
Sure. As we know, there's been a wave of people trying to reduce their garbage, going to reusable, recyclable stuff. So the sustainability had a subcommittee, a plastics reduction subcommittee. I was thrilled to be able to sit in with them, and I think that they've come up with a pretty good draft law addressing polystyrene and plastic straws.
Styrene and styrofoam, right?
Right, exactly. And so I wanted to thank them for their hard work, and I hope that everybody else agrees that it's a good start in the right direction.
All right, so who from the Sustainability Committee is going to lead this off? Joe Glorioso and Tim Roland. And
I
Dieter
should
von
know.
Leesten.
There you are.
Been working on that.
Keep trying.
Practice.
I want to note
got
that
it. Leesten.
I want to note that Dan Glee was here from our Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and I'm sure would like to weigh on a lot of. Joe is our liaison between those two groups, and they do a lot of good work, and so I'd certainly value your input.
All right, if you want to come forward, that's okay. We'll find you a chair.
You want to come? No? All right.
All right. All
Okay.
right, Tip, do you want to lead this off?
Yeah, you have in your package a hard copy of what's going to be shown on the screen. It's brief. We'll tell you what we propose, why we propose it, and what the business community has said about it so far. So, expanded polystyrene, which is commonly known as styrofoam, which happens to be a trademark name, but we'll refer to it as styrofoam. East Hampton Village and about 80 other municipalities in the country have banned it. These words would be in the draft law that you see up there, which is you can't sell, you can't sell or offer for use single-service articles, that's takeout containers, cups, these clamshell things, made out of expanded polystyrene or styrofoam, with exceptions which are typical in the laws that I've surveyed, we've surveyed, which, as I say, includes 80.
ADA requirements, yeah.
That comes later, but the polystyrene for prepackaged foods, those kinds of things, and used to store raw meat, etc., because polystyrene does have an insulating quality. Also, this would prohibit the use or offer for sale loose fill styrofoam, those pellets, peanuts, that are called, or coolers made of styrofoam. The second part of this, and we've drafted this under the assumption that it would be a part of the law that prohibits plastic bags. Other towns have done the same kind of thing. So this would tell food services establishments that they should only offer straws on request, and when they do so, they shouldn't be plastic, with one exception, which is the one Jay just mentioned. The ADA, American with Disabilities Act, encourages people to make available these kind of straws for people who need them. So, hence the exception that's stated up there. This is a definition of what we're talking about. Again, these things come out of the East Hampton law, which came out of the Patchogue Village law, which came out of plagiarism is a virtue in these cases. Why we're doing this? This is a quote from the introduction to the Plastics Bags Law, which was not written, by the way, by the Sustainability Committee, but by the town attorney at the time. And I thought it was a good statement of a general focus for the town to keep our environment the way we want it. But to be more specific, it's a surprising statistic, but Southampton discards, as best we can tell, about 20 million straws a year. It also discards about 8 million styrofoam cups a year. Now, the way we calculated this is based on nationally recognized numbers extrapolated down to the weighted average population. In other words, 3 times in the summer, plus the regular, for 9 months of the year, the regular population. Comes out to be a big number. Now, whether it's 20 million straws or 10 million straws, it's a lot. Reducing waste helps the town, both from the standpoint of waste disposal cost and increased revenue from recyclables. Another thing that's not normally known is styrofoam is poisonous, not so much in the cups, although in theory, yes, that would be true, but in the manufacture of it. Polystyrene is a carcinogen, and so the less there is of it, the less hazard to workers. This stuff does not degrade effectively. It just stays in the landfill, stays in the ocean to be eaten by sea life. And the other items here about the ozone layer and the greenhouse gases, like a lot of plastics, are hazardous byproducts. So our feeling is if we can get by without these, the environment and the town are better off. And there are alternatives. Paper straws, bamboo straws, plastic cups, paper cups. So
before you move on to
Yeah.
just the one point I didn't want you to go over is that the globally landfills, about 30% of our landfills are filled with styrofoam
Yes.
products.
Now, I don't want to mislead you. It's not all styrofoam cups. As you know, styrofoam packaging is used. So that's a statistic that reflects all styrofoam.
Okay.
We, as we did for the plastic bags, we talked to businesses in the area and went around. And in your package, and I'll show you in a moment, is a smaller version of this map, which shows exactly where we went. We tried to spread ourselves around the town. In short, the result was that 98% of the business people we talked to either supported or had no objection to what we were proposing. We went to them with the proposals, asked them simple, straightforward question. Do you have a problem? Do you have a problem with this? Many are already doing it. They recognize this is the direction that the country is going. and those that didn't. I got probably a very honest answer from one of the businesses I talked to in Bridgehampton. He said he started off, he's a bar owner, he started off by saying, "We object to being told what to do. This is terrible. The plastic bags is terrible." Then he smiled and said, "It doesn't really give me a problem." So you'll always have that conflict with some.
And can I just interject real quick here? Just so everybody knows, we did reach out to the Southampton Business Alliance and the chambers throughout the town, and we have not heard of any opposition. We actually sent them the draft legislation a month ago. I followed up again last week, and we have not heard anything from them yet. I hope they do chime in, but...
You didn't hear support or opposition?
Correct.
Are there particular businesses that are heavy users, like
Restaurants.
fast food places?
Fast food places, restaurants because the straws in particular. And Julie talked to a couple of restaurant owners who said they give, just one establishment each, they give out 500,000 straws a summer.
Oh. No, they could use the paper straws, though.
They can use other
But your
straws,
law would
or no
say-
straws.
Your law would say that they'd have to request
Right.
the straw. And when they request it, they would get one, but it would be a paper or metal or bamboo or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Something other than plastic.
So this will save the business community money.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'll also add into that by far the chain stores, particularly the big chain stores that produce a lot of this internally. So when the question is asked, they have to ask their corporate headquarters what they're doing. In one case, when I just went in unidentified and asked the question, actually spoke with somebody in one of those corporations that they have internal initiatives to do exactly that. And I think Tip was saying that they recognize that nationally this is a big issue. So I think there's movement on that front, but it's certainly nothing that we're affecting in that regard, except for in this sense. But I think that sense of the national responsibility environmentally is taking hold in corporate America.
I think so.
Let me add that the EU has just passed the law for the same thing, to ban these products.
Now, it doesn't prohibit the sale, like King Colin can still sell plastic straws, right? If I want to buy them as a homeowner for my
It
kids.
doesn't affect that.
Okay, it's just the food service.
Food
establishment.
service establishments is what this is targeted to. And I was thinking myself the other day, how many straws do my wife and I have in our house? The answer was none, of course, which I think is true of a lot of people. So it's the restaurant.
I've got a lot of bamboo straws that Ms. Lofstad has given me.
I have a sample too. I'll show you. May I interject?
Joe?
Supervisor Schneiderman mentioned who primarily uses styrofoam. A lot of ethnic restaurants, the clamshell that you get, they're mostly styrofoam. And when you see those melted little portions, when you get hot food in them, that inhibits the carcinogens in the styrofoam as well. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I visited the village of Patchogue, which was a very early organization that passed this. And so I went to 3 different restaurants. They had 3 different solutions. They were all well aware that styrofoam was prohibited. They used paper clamshells. They knew it wasn't a problem.
The plastic
With this-
containers are okay, right?
Yes.
Because I
As
know
long
some
as
like the
it's not
Chinese
styrofoam.
restaurants, they'll put it in a plastic container.
And those are considered multi-use. I was going to ask that same question. Like
Uh,
they're a thicker grade
More-
plastic. I've seen
Yeah.
more of those, and
They're not considered single-use items.
they're not
You
considered.
can use them as Tupperware.
Yeah,
Wash
that's what
them
we
out
do.
and keep them in your
I
house.
use them, yeah.
And they wouldn't be prohibited by this in any
Okay.
event because it's not styrofoam.
Right. Sometimes it's paper containers,
Right.
Yeah.
like the rices and that.
Yeah.
Funny shaped.
Yeah, but
Okay.
interestingly enough, some of the containers are actually lined to prevent moisture
PLA.
going through the paper. So it's not a uniform product. And, you know, that's also an issue that we have with landfills and separation and recycling, that, you know, these are issues in the manufacturing. So to lobby the manufacturing lobby to try to change that practice, you know, it's a long, drawn-out affair, but it seems to have taken hold. And I think, you know, businesses want to do the responsible thing. And it seems to, we're starting to see evidence of
I
that.
think we're consistent with that. These are the areas that we visited, and as I say, on your map there, you can see specifically, and I have a list of the businesses if you're interested. Also, there is a lot of publicity about sea life, and of course, we live on the ocean, and recently you probably read about the whale that was washed up and died and had 13 pounds of plastic in its stomach. So these are real problems. This is not a photoshopped bird pecking away at a piece of styrofoam and eating it. The animals can't distinguish between food and these products. Same with bags. So they think bags are jellyfish. They think these are sea life. So this is a problem that they would benefit also. Similar to the plastic bags initiative, what we would do is have an educational program, assuming this is passed, give the businesses 6 months to clear out their existing inventory, get used to the idea, substitute other products, etc. It worked well with the bags, and we would hope it would work well with it. And finally, in summary, if you look in front of you,
Come on, Mike.
I give up. It lasted almost to the last slide. In summary, we recommend prohibition on use of expanded foam polystyrene, styrofoam food containers, with laws essentially the same as essentially the same as the East Hampton Village and Patchogue laws. Requirement to provide non-plastic straws and on request, and a prohibition on the manufacturer or stores using polystyrene loose-fill packaging coolers. Surveys show good support, actually much better than the good support that we had on the bags initiative. 98% is a good number. If it was passed, then we would have an educational campaign, and we open it to questions.
All right.
May I say one additional
Yes,
point?
Peter van Liesten.
Thank you.
They're working on it.
Very much a help in all this, I have to mention the organization Surfriders. They had been going around and doing their thing, and I think we have a few representatives. There they are.
Yay.
So they have been very tough at work on this and going around. So when we came in, they've done a lot of our work already. So thank you, Surfriders.
Great.
And just, Surfrider had a Strawless Summer campaign, and there were about 45 restaurants and other types of businesses, organizations that went strawless over the summer on their own, thanks to Surfrider. So thanks, you guys.
That's great.
Yep.
Other questions for the
Sure,
committee?
I have one. A lot of plastics are degradable. I think some of them even advertise biodegradable, but they don't entirely degrade. Could you address microplastics?
Well, the way a plastic degrades is it breaks up into smaller pieces. It doesn't degrade into carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen which is what it's originally created from. So when they say biodegradable and they're made out of vegetable oils or whatever, partially true, but mainly, I'm afraid, a lot of it is advertising hype. The only sure way to avoid problems in the future is not to have it in the first place.
So when I
Or to
pick up the
use
bag
paper.
that's been out and it disintegrates in your hands, it's just breaking up into smaller pieces of plastic.
It
that
breaks
get
up into smaller pieces, and when they're put in landfills, actually, they don't even do that, because many of these so-called biodegradable plastics need sunlight in order to degrade, and of course, once they're in the landfill.
So what does this proposed law prohibit biodegradable plastic straws?
It doesn't say what you would replace these polystyrene containers
Well,
with,
the plastic straw,
or the plastic straw, other than it can't be plastic. In the case of the straws, no plastic straws would be allowed. You'd use paper, bamboo,
So plastic would include biodegradable
Yes.
plastic.
yes.
Well, it's-
And in
it's
fact,
plastic
they've
too.
run tests, as Tommy John says, they've run tests on these biodegradable straws, and they don't degrade.
I
No,
know-
they need intense ultraviolet, and
Yeah,
it's not
in a
there.
some of these laws, some of these laws that we looked at require compostable products, some require biodegradable replacements. Most don't specify. But the compost is not our compost. The compost is a commercial composting facility, which we don't have, of course. So as these things develop over time, we can learn more and adjust accordingly. But for now,
I know with the styrofoam peanuts, as you described them, there is an alternative product, right? There's a
Yeah.
cornstarch-based, it acts just like styrofoam, but it gets wet, it disappears.
Right.
It's all natural food
Which is
product.
relative.
I don't think there's anything like that with a straw, because if you put it in the liquid, it dissolves.
Melts in coffee.
Paper.
Be pretty dumb, so.
cut down on soft drinks.
But maybe somebody will come up, but paper straws work pretty well.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because
And there's bamboo and steel and glass
Yeah.
and all sorts.
those are reusable
Yes.
types of products. You know,
Right.
But in terms of disposable, the paper straws,
They are getting better. The paper straws, I've seen some of them, they actually have like a harder cardboardish on the outside, and they do last a bit longer. But I think that the industry realizes that this is the wave of the future, and they are working hard to make something that lasts longer. Oh,
This
Joe's
is-
ready to do some show and tell here, so.
all right.
I was gonna say, there's no better. This is a high-end paper straw.
Yeah, that's,
When I was a kid, straws were paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And here is a
They would get
Councilwoman
mushy.
Lofstad bamboo straw.
see, those, I know Julie's a
Which
big
is my
fan of
favorite.
these, but, and I have some too, gift from Julie. But yeah, cleaning them, I worry about the cleaning of them.
No,
Sure.
that's,
That's-
when you get metal straws, they usually come with cleaners.
Okay.
And
Hard to clean.
very, very important, as you said, because they do get contaminated rather quickly, and the bacteria does build up.
But you can dishwash them in their, just
Yeah,
like all
but
of
does
Bamboo
the
is very,
dishwasher
very-
get the liquid into the, inside of the straw? I don't know.
With this
I
little-
just put mine in a dishwasher, it works, they work
If
fine.
you want to get thorough, just a little pipe cleaner
Yeah.
with some soap.
But I did want to sort of come back a little bit, because of on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, one of the big concerns that we're experiencing in Southampton, but the country's experiencing, is the landfills, and that we're closing landfills. We keep putting in products that do not degrade. Styrofoam in particularly takes up a big volume. So we're having a local problem with that right now. We're exceeding capacity. A lot of our waste is taken off the island and taken to other landfills and other places. It's just moving the problem down the road. It's not solving the problem. So I applaud this. I think this is a really good start for that. I'm particularly concerned, working with Christine Fenton, our town engineer, and our waste department. We're having a big problem with this, with the sheer volume of garbage that we're dealing with. but also the fact that we're not recycling at a great rate. You know, it's kind of a misnomer, and I think Lucy Dunnett sent a really great article, which I would love to share with the world, because I think it really shows the problem that we're faced with, that, you know, while we think we're recycling, we really aren't. So our volumes are pretty low at the end of the day. So a lot of these products in particular end up in a landfill.
Are you, one of the things you're banning are these styrofoam coolers. You see them at 7-Eleven and other places. They're relatively inexpensive. Are there alternatives that people can buy to those styrofoam coolers? Will that affect the fishing industry, or?
We looked into that, actually, and
Julie looked into,
we found that it didn't. And those styrofoam coolers in general are horrible because, Tom, you mentioned, they don't degrade. Styrofoam just breaks up into little particles, and that's literally a good
I
example.
know they crack pretty easily.
They crack, and those little
break
particles
up into small pieces.
they do not ever disappear. They just break into small parts.
And they do end up in the water, because when I was sailing in Noyak Bay a few years ago, I noticed something that I thought was a seal, so I sailed over to it. It was a styrofoam cooler.
So, you know, it's interesting. In my previous life, it was I remember 1976, I think it was October. It was my first experience with the Pacific gyre. So we have these gyres of plastics that exist in our oceans that constantly spin and collect plastics. And if you dive through those, you'll see these at various depths and various densities of the material. That was many, many years ago. I had the great opportunity to sort of redo that in the late 90s, and the volume was starkly larger. And I know that there are also practices that are out of sight, out of mind, where we have container ships now. We were at one time, as a country, shipping a lot of our garbage to other areas in the world. There was a practice of sort of letting some of that slip out of those container ships as it was making its way across the Pacific. Because an empty container coming back. So there are a lot of practices that we don't really see, but we contribute to. And it's very, very noticeable, particularly in those areas in the oceans. We see that a lot. And, you know, everyone's seen the pictures of people surfing in plastic, and seeing these gyres are hundreds of miles across and growing exponentially. So I think this is a really good way to focus on the issue, but also to do something good for our community.
So we have villages, obviously, within the town. A lot of the food services are within the villages. So maybe in downtown Southampton, Sag Harbor, etc. There are a couple downtown areas that are outside the village, because this law that we pass, if we pass it, won't affect the villages unless they follow suit. Bridgehampton, that's within the town. Hampton Bays, that's a big downtown within the town with a number of food service establishments. So I'm wondering, I like this, you know, on its face it sounds good. But I'm wondering if we shouldn't do a work session or a public hearing on it in the Hampton Bays community, since that's probably the highest concentration of affected businesses with it. Does anybody have any objection to that?
No.
All right. So now, Julie, you're introducing this, though, right? It's already in draft form. It's ready to go. Is it going in the packet for Tuesday's meeting?
I know Martha is looking it over, so maybe she can
Sure.
say where she
It
is.
hasn't been drafted yet into like our standard resolution for introducing a new law, and part of that is just figuring out the mechanics of how it would fit into our town code. Currently, we have chapter 212, which is our retail plastic bag chapter. We have room within the code to create chapter 213, which would be the plastic stirrers and the styrofoam, or we could amend chapter 212 and just create, a new one. So before I drafted something, I wanted to get the input from the board in terms of how they really wanted to, do they want to create a new chapter of the code or amend our plastic bag chapter to include all of this?
Well, I can tell you that on the state level, when this was introduced, it never made it out of the Senate. But it was tacked on to the environmental conservation law and their plastic bag ban. That's where they put it.
So I really wanted to get the opinion of the different members of the board to just see how they would like to see the code structured before I draft anything.
Yeah, I would think the same section as the plastic bag ban
Okay.
would make sense.
It would retitle the code, the chapter name. It would, become retail plastic bags, styrofoam, or polystyrene, and plastic stirrers.
Stirrers and
That's-
straws.
And then we'd just fit it all in and have it be cohesive.
Julie, I don't know if you'd care to comment. I know you and Joe are on the plastics, I don't have the name right, the committee for the county itself.
Yeah, it's a
It's a kind of a.
task force.
Yeah, a task force, that's it. And I know they're drafting law for the county. I don't know where that's at. I don't know if you care to speak to that.
I don't know where they are, particularly on their law. I attended my first meeting about a month and a half ago, and we haven't had a second meeting yet, but I certainly can find out where they are on that.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a resource for you, Martha,
Sure.
as well, so.
Thank you.
Janice, so we can schedule a town board meeting in the Hampton Bays community. We've done that before. So if we had the first, let's say, public hearing here at Town Hall, and then we added it, a second hearing to a town board meeting in the Hampton Bays community. We haven't set the full agenda for next year yet, so we could.
Correct, and we could also call a special meeting. We don't have to adhere to the standard meeting dates that we have. If you want to do this, we could call a special meeting in Hampton Bays as well.
Well, I'd also like to get the data from,
Because it's, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Excuse me, Councilman, because it's really a one-issue type of a.
Right, but we could tie it in with other things that could affect the, west of the canal communities. I like the idea of having a town board meeting. We've done it once before in Hampton Bays. I know we've done some work sessions, but I think we've had at least one town board meeting.
Yeah.
So as we set the schedule for next year, maybe we could tie this in.
Okay.
So maybe there'd be a February meeting, something in Hampton Bays.
so what
I
I,
would assume you want to do an evening meeting.
An evening meeting,
so what I was gonna ask is, have you looked at the various areas in the town on a volume basis? So I know the supervisor said Hampton Bays, that's anecdotal from my standpoint, because I don't know what the data is, but, we have 4 transfer stations, and I think that data can be pulled out, and I'd like to ask Christine Fenton to pull that out, or Ed Thompson to pull that out, so we can see what the distribution is ultimately throughout the town. Just to get an idea. It may be that we want to be in Hampton Bays, but we also maybe want to be in other parts of the community as well.
Bridgehampton has a sizable business area too,
Right.
and potentially more actual business.
If you look at this map, we went to a fairly large number of businesses in Hampton Bays area. It's a big area. As you say, it's not an incorporated village. We went to villages as well as the town. And I contacted West Hampton Beach, Sag Harbor. Nick Palumbo is here from Southampton Village. So we've tried to keep them informed as to what we're doing.
Sure.
And if the bags experience is any indication, the villages picked that up, as I understand it, fairly quickly after the town passed it.
Actually, they were
Except for
before
one.
us. Southampton Village passed the ban.
Southampton.
The
yeah,
village
we-
was before.
Yeah, it was first,
Yeah.
and then the town, and
I think
Yeah,
this is
I think
something-
West Hampton Beach didn't, if I recall, but then the county came and
Yeah.
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 Deposits.
So that's follow-up after the town does, assuming the town passes it. I would think a logical follow-up would be for the committee and others to encourage the villages to adopt the same thing.
We did that with the ban. We
consistency.
went from village to village and made presentations to the village boards, the trustees, and that, except West Hampton, everyone jumped on board.
I'd like to know where the county is for sure.
I'm trying to think timing-wise, too. If we, let's say it were to pass in February, after that second public hearing, and there's a 6-month wait period, February, March, April, May, June, July, then it would kick in sort of in the middle of the summer. That's not the best, to have it shift over between July and August. It would be better to have it in place prior.
Before the summer.
Before the summer, which means we'd have to expedite it a little bit maybe,
Or perhaps give it a year lead time.
No.
That means they can go, no?
No.
or maybe give it a 4-month lead time.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
sounds better.
I would get some input.
Yeah, from the businesses.
Yeah, maybe kick in on July 4th or something, beginning of the summer. Give-
Memorial Day weekend would be,
Memorial Day weekend, that's now, yeah.
that could be.
A 3-month, that may be ample. Because most of the businesses seem to support it anyway, so.
a lot of businesses are aware, even
Ready is another story.
even the restaurants primarily that had styrofoam to-goes were aware of the situation and wanted to know about alternatives, and I even took time to discuss the alternatives with them.
Right.
And although it being slightly more, not outrageously more, but just a couple of pennies more per unit, they're willing to go in that direction.
We could also, as Janice had recommended earlier, do a special meeting in Hampton Bays. That might be able to move the clock up so we could have it in January. So we'd have a meeting at Town Hall in January and a meeting in Hampton Bays in January. By the end of January, pass it, and with like a 4-month lag until Memorial Day. That might work.
So one of the things that I find interesting is that, our population swell increases in the summer. It's increased a lot more. It used to be half, and it was a third, now it's almost approaching over triple the amount of people. So we go from 60,000 to, 200,000 people just in that short period of time. And one of the things that's been discussed at the Solid Waste Advisory Committee is that we have people that are summer residents only and come from different jurisdictions where they treat garbage differently. And they're really not educated on how we're doing things here. There is a different way it's done. They're not aware of the transfer station. They're not aware of what they can and cannot do, and where things are. Is there any value to combining that type of education while you're doing this as well, to help educate that 3-month period, that group of people who, through no fault of their own, they're just not aware of what they can and cannot do? Does that make sense, or maybe
Yes.
not? Maybe it's
No, no,
too
it does.
far reach?
Very difficult to reach these people.
Yeah.
Where are they, where they come from?
Right, well, that's what we struggle with.
And that's the biggest problem.
All right, well, it's something to think about.
You're looking at businesses on the one hand, which this would affect, and on the other hand, personal behavior. Obviously, they both have to be reached somehow.
Yeah.
You see, the biggest problem is what is happening in the business community. They are handing it out. They're using it.
Well, that's what I kind of mean, because it is a summer resident who will go to a business and will
And if
not.
he doesn't get it,
Yeah, or they won't know what to ask for. They won't know what's in place. So it would be incumbent on the business to
Yeah.
be part of that
the
education
business
process.
is not handing out styrofoam, the cups, and it's
Yeah.
not handing out the plastic
Okay.
straws. So
I don't think so.
they are the educated then.
They control it. I mean,
All right, so,
If I may.
yeah, Joe, and then we're going to wrap this up, but I noticed a hand in the audience. We do have a little extra time allotted for this subject. If somebody wants to weigh in, I'm okay with that.
The many residents that do come in the summer are under the impression, which is true, but pertaining to that article on 27 East, they are told by the carters that their recyclables will be sorted, which is true to an extent, but they aren't aware that only 10% of those collected at the facility are recyclable or get recycled. So I'm talking about at Southampton, we're a pretty progressive, sustainable community. I can't imagine the rest of New York in general with rates that low. That's just from sorting through the waste. So if we get ahead of that and educate that community, that avenue to separate beforehand and get out, if the people understand that they think 100% of what they're putting in their garbage is getting recycled. If they're aware that only 10% of it is getting recycled, that's a good head turner right there.
That's a good point. Thanks, Joe.
Sounds like an education campaign.
I do.
So, all right, ma'am, did you want to, if you're going to speak, though, I will ask you to come up, though, because we are recording. And we will, the microphone won't pick you up from the audience. Just identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Donna Bennett. I was born and raised here. I just have two questions. One, when you say the bags are totally banned, if you pay 5 cents, you can't get a plastic bag? I think several
Single
places.
use. It's single use that are banned, and if you pay 5 cents, you can get a paper, and if you pay more than that, you get a reusable.
Oh, the green
Plastic,
that are
the heavier
reusable, but they don't.
Some establishments do have a thicker
Thank you.
grade
Right.
green bag that is considered to be reusable.
Yeah,
which
those
I
are the
think is
bigger ones.
somewhat
Yeah,
of-
there's no more of the other plastics at all.
Single-use
thin ones?
T-shirt
No.
bags, no.
Well, it depends on where you go, so that's a
They're not allowed.
Southampton, so within Suffolk County, you can still have those thin film plastic bags, but you have to charge a nickel for them. But if you're in the town of Southampton, or other municipalities that have banned those thin bags, even with the county law, they still can't make those available, even for 5 cents.
Okay.
So all they can, in Southampton, they can use the thicker bags,
And they have two kinds.
right?
The thicker, non-green throwaway.
Yeah, that's
it's
not,
a
that's,
thick- It happens to be green, but it probably
Oh.
could be another color too. I know over in Stop and Shop or.
Right, I've
It's a
seen
green
those.
thicker, and then
Yes.
there's the other, it's almost like a canvasy type
Yes,
bag.
yes,
But it's got like
I
a
have
coating or
those.
something.
No, I just
Southampton
wondered about
allows,
the
like,
plastics.
I think Southampton
They have
allows the
plastic.
paper bags, but because of the county law, they have to charge a nickel for that.
Yeah, I don't mind that. My other question is, you say that the people that come here for the summer are not educated about what goes on at the dump. How come those of us that live here all the time have no idea that only 10% of our garbage is being recycled?
No, no,
So
no.
that's not at the
That's
dump.
not, see, that's why I thought the article was a little
What,
misleading.
what
You're saying by the carters, by anyone who doesn't do it themselves, anyone who depends on the garbage companies to pick up their garbage, has no idea that only 10% of their garbage is actually
Yeah,
being
so I don't even know where, I'm gonna trust Joe, but I don't know where that number comes from. There's different carters, right? There's many different companies.
Oh, I understand that.
So,
But I also understand that when we go out to North Sea, well, that's where I go, to the recycling, they're not just plastic bottles. I'm reading about this. All the other plastics that we're throwing in there can't be broken down like those. I'm just reading this now online and finding out a lot, we're doing this to ourselves.
So if you bring your.
Why is there no education for us on how to legitimately
Right.
do the right thing?
That's
How do
right.
we know what to do? I'm asking you as the town to
Sure.
give us some guidance.
Well, if you go through our facility, which is free to you, anything you recycle, you don't have to pay a penny for.
Oh, I get all that. I pay
know.
it in my taxes.
No, you don't, actually.
Who pays for the dump
It's,
thing?
well, it's an
Who
enterprise
pays
zone.
for the
It's
municipality?
a self-sustaining, so there's materials that come in that we charge for. Right, you buy the bags, and that price is kind of built into the volume of what it's gonna cost us to get rid of that material, have a company come and take that away. And the recyclables, some of them we make money from. You know, metal, sometimes we make money from. Cardboard, we do quite well on. Paper, sometimes we make money. Some we don't make any money on.
That's right.
Some we lose money, we have to pay to get rid of. But on the whole, that operation is self-sustaining. The brush, we make some money off the brush.
Oh, I get all that, but what about the styrofoam? Why aren't we separating out styrofoam? It's coming to Christmas time, you buy all these things, everybody's
recyclable.
buying stuff
It's not
online.
recyclable.
The problem is
No
not.
more styrofoam?
It's not recyclable, so it ends up in the MSW, the municipal solid waste pile. That should go into the green bag. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't recycle
My question is, if
styrofoam.
you banned already the plastic bags, why not the styrofoam long before that?
that's
Well,
why we're here.
That's what we're discussing.
All right,
So-
thank you
But
very
it won't,
much.
this law won't stop you from going and buying styrofoam cups that keep
I don't
coming.
want
So
styrofoam.
you as a homeowner still have access to styrofoam, but if you go into a coffee shop, you're gonna get your coffee in a paper cup, not a styrofoam.
I don't think we should have access to it at home. Why
That's not
why don't we
what's
just
being
put a stop to
proposed
styrofoam?
That's what we're doing, that's what we're here.
That's a first step.
Yes.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if we were to do so, we would be one of the first municipalities in the state to do it. I mean,
lead
just
the
like,
way.
you know,
Let's lead the way.
Again, that's why we're here.
I'm Tom Oleschuk, and I'm one of the Surfrider members here to basically support you in your efforts to help us push back the tide of garbage and push back the damage that we've been doing to our environment. And I'm very glad that you moved up so easily to 4 months rather than back to a year, because we're way behind schedule in terms of trying to save our planet. And I think this is a very good first step. I would hope that eventually the county and maybe the state would do something comparable. But to follow up, what was just said, I would recommend that maybe in some of your deliberations, you start thinking about, maybe education and legislation to get rid of the home-based pollutants that, that you're moving to ban commercially today.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff?
Hi, Tim Corwin, Southampton. I'm here today as a volunteer for Surfrider and also as a volunteer for the Riverhead Foundation for Marine Research and Preservation. As you guys probably know, we're the ones that go out and rescue the seals and the sea turtles. It is very common that we have an animal that is injured or sometimes killed by plastics. I certainly commend the board on this law. I think it's a great move. I hope we'll be coming back to you sometime in the future asking for a ban on balloons. I know Block Island has already passed that ban. Maybe sometime in the future, Julie could address the problem we have with marine debris left by commercial fishermen. Because actually our biggest problem with seals and sea turtles is entanglement, and that generally comes from fishermen's nets that are left behind.
There is a marine debris program that we participate in.
Excellent, thank you. And I also like to say that I very frequently walk the beaches. When I do, I always carry a bag with me, and it's pretty unusual. I don't fill it up, and I would certainly encourage everybody else to do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Right, and we do have, Councilman Scalera is quite involved with this, is the beach cleanups. We do, several times a year, an organized effort to get volunteers to clean up the beaches. Ma'am, this could be, I think, the last comment.
Hi, my name is Heidi Rayna-Leschuk, and I'm also a member of Surfrider, the Blue Water Task Force, testing the waters for enterococcus and trying to see what's happening there and what we could do to clean up our water bodies here. I've also lived in Brooklyn for 35 years, and during that time, the whole time, I was a member of the Park Slope Food Co-op, and that's the only reason that I happen to know that the only recycling that really gets done of plastics is of number 1 and number 2 containers. Most people don't know this. All the plastic is thrown in, and more labor and more energy is used to try to fish out the bad plastic. There's no reason why they shouldn't say only number 1 and number 2 plastics. Don't do the number 6, number 7, the number 5, and all that shit, because it doesn't do anything. So I think we need to really educate people, as everybody's been saying, and let them know so that we can, there are things we're doing, but we're not doing it well enough to make it really make a difference. So I think the education, if there's an education committee, to really inform everybody, locals and summer people and everybody, as to what really gets done here, so that we can really be effective. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Julie, what's your pleasure? You're going to finish the law?
Yep.
Introduce it as soon as it's finished?
Yes.
We'll try to get 2 hearings, 2 public hearings
Perfect.
associated with it, one here in one Hampton Bays. And is everybody on board so far?
Absolutely.
All right, good.
I am on board.
Sounds good. All right, thank you to the committee.
Thank you.
Presenters.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
I know, I thought that too.
7 years. When the first
Really?
Yep.
Huh?
Have you ever at the county?
Joe, I will be in touch.
Probably.
Yes. It's funny, I didn't want to say, but the county's kind of waiting for us a little bit.
You want somebody else?
Juice, so the word that was used.
She's
Oh, yeah. I caught
taken a
that.
couple of things that I've
Plastic bag
What
now.
this?
she said a couple of things that I've mentioned and kind of wrote into her amendments. So they're listening. So
There was that guy last night.
Guys, we have
Yeah, but that wasn't.
more work session.
thank you, board. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, hello. All right, so we're going to switch topics.
Thanks, Dan.
About 2 minutes ahead of schedule, which isn't bad. We're going to move on to LED street lighting, smart city, facility lighting, security camera project update. And can I ask those from the last conversation to stop talking?
Hello, guys. Hello.
I'm sorry, we're trying to move on to the next subject. If you could exit quietly, we'd appreciate it. Okay, so once again, LED street lighting, smart city, facility lighting, security camera project update. We're going to be joined by Kristen Doulos, our town parks director. We have Paul Parthamore from NIPA project engineer, Jeff Leano, NIPA energy manager, and Len Marchese, town controller.
We're just getting the PowerPoint.
Hey, how are you?
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you?
I hope I didn't mess your names up too badly.
You got mine perfect.
I think. Jeff Lano, is that
Jeff
it?
Lano, yeah.
Lano. What
They've
is
been
it?
messing up my name since kindergarten, though, so I'm used to it, but it's all good.
You're Paul Parthamore?
Parthamore, correct.
All right.
You're Len Marchese?
All right, who's gonna kick this off?
I guess we're gonna have to rotate a little bit.
Well,
We're gonna kind of take you through a PowerPoint of the project.
Before you get to that,
Do we,
as you
you
know,
Chris? Okay.
you want to.
Christine Fenton, our town engineer, do you want to join us?
Yeah. All right, okay.
As you know, we started this project about a year ago, really. It's been a year in the making that we've been looking at
Is the LED street
the
light?
LED street lighting. We went through the process. We had proposals. We finally decided that this was the right way to go and that it would primarily be funded through the savings in the electric. And as a result of this, and they're going to kind of go through where we are with all of that, we had a two-phase project. We wanted to do lighting and we wanted to do some cameras throughout the town so that we had security cameras. So it benefited us and it really elevated the town in terms of our infrastructure. And so I think it's wound up. It was a lot of work over the last 9 months. Kristen has done a great job in managing the project. She really did take control of it. I have to give her credit. It was not in her realm of experience, but she picked it up very well and managed the whole crew, and the whole project management was handled. And these folks can give you an update of where we are. We're kind of winding down, but we had a lot of positive successes along the way. So I think everybody can take a little credit for it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Kristen and the team have been delightful to work with and on point, organized, and very helpful with information back and forth and stuff. So
Great to hear.
we're pretty happy with how the project's turned out, and I know that I've pointed others to Kristen, and she has given us wonderful references, and we're doing a lot of work on Long Island with other municipalities, and thanks for that.
Do you have copies of that to hand out?
I do have copies. Would you like some?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my reach is over.
Thank you.
So we're going to kind of take you through this PowerPoint a little bit, give you a broad overview of NIPA, and then talk about the project's success. But at any point, please stop us, ask questions. We'll have a conversation. So
Open format
keep
today.
it very open. But the New York Power Authority, NIPA, we basically generate hydroelectric power. Essentially, 20% of the state's electric comes from NIPA assets. And there are 16 facilities, primary one up in Niagara Falls, on the Niagara River. There's also a plant on Long Island in Holtzville, right on the LIE, the Flynn Power Plant, a natural gas-fired plant that generates about 135 megawatts of power for Long Island. And a lot of the NIPA power is from hydro sources, 70% of it. And NIPA doesn't use any tax money, that we actually sell this low-cost power to some municipal customers, Westchester County, New York City, state agencies, as well as some private commercial entities as part of an economic development program throughout the state. So we basically, through our revenues from the supply side, utilize those monies to help energy efficiency initiatives happen, have the bandwidth and the money to fund projects and keep things going, which I think you guys took advantage of with this project, so didn't have to pay out any money along the way. Our energy efficiency department handles full turnkey implementation with design engineers, project management, and ongoing quality control. And Paul was the lead on this project and essentially did a really good job with Gus DeConzo as the engineer of record. So we do this work because it's part of the Reforming the Energy Vision program, which is a New York State program to reduce energy consumption throughout the state. And there's a variety of goals to be met by 2020 as well as 2030 in terms of renewables, and the state's well on its way to achieving those goals. And NIPA is essentially managing a lot of the projects that are helping to get there. And this particular project, while it's not necessarily accounted for as a state goal, certainly is part of the solution to climate change, et cetera, and greenhouse gas emissions and all those things that we're dealing with in America and the world. So as part of Reforming the Energy Vision, to try to help municipalities be part of the solution, the state developed this Smart Street Lighting New York program. There's roughly 1 million street lights that are non-LED throughout the state, so the target was to do 500,000 of them by 2025. We have probably 350,000 in some version of completion, either in our pipeline, in negotiation, in bidding, in design, in construction. So we're making a tremendous headway, and I think even the projects that we don't win, in some way we're meeting with people and motivating them to do it either on their own or upstate. The utility companies still own their lights, so they're doing conversions and taking on ownership of the LEDs, or having the utility companies do it, but the smarter ones are going with us so that they can take on owning the lights and doing the maintenance themselves, which part of your savings is going to be in your maintenance savings as well, and we'll touch on that. So essentially, the Smart Street Lighting New York program, we're going to do probably close to 500,000 of them by 2025, and saving taxpayers a tremendous amount of money and all the great environmental benefits, as well as just the benefits of the cleaner, better quality light for people, safer light, et cetera. And just to go back one slide, because you guys should get the accolades because you implemented the smart street lighting technology, so you can dim your lights. You're the first municipality in the state to do that, and it's really a great project. And we are working, closely with Philips and the utility companies to figure out methodologies for cost savings for you guys as well. So that's in process. But
part of the benefit that we achieved, and we have to still work it out, was that, say we have a 30-watt bulb, but we're only using it at 15 watts because we dim it. We should be getting credit for that dim.
Yeah.
The only mechanism that they have in place right now is to only say whatever the light bulb is, and whatever it's rated, that's the only discount you can get, even if you're running it at 50%. But Philips, which is the vendor that we've used, has a whole back room way of monitoring the electric usage.
The actual usage.
The actual usage, right. And it's metered, and it's exact, and it's reporting, and we have to, the processes of getting the state to accept that technology and reporting, and once we do, that's why we're the first one in the state.
The State Public Service Commission.
So once they can accept our methodology, then we should get that even further credit.
So the credit is through PSE&G, right? That they would lower
our bill.
Because they they're billing based on their assumptions about what the use is going to be?
Right.
Yes,
Based on the wattage of the bulb, but we're dimming it, so the actuals are gonna be less.
correct.
So
You got
we
it.
have to now go back and make an argument to PSEG.
We are. Yes.
But first we have to go to PSE.
To be clear, dimming the lights, we're actually using less electricity. It's not like a home dimmer where the electricity
loss
is
of
just
heat.
being
It's
diverted
correct.
somewhere
You
else.
dim it down 50%,
Okay.
50% wattage.
Yes. Yeah, and that'll be reflected in these meters, which are now being tested.
Great question.
And getting the ANSI certification so that PSEG and the Public Service Commission are convinced and comfortable with saying, yes, this is a revenue grade meter. So they're working on that. And NIPA is putting pressure on PSC and advocating for this to be adopted. But, and Philips, on a parallel track, is getting their product tested and certified.
So as I understand it, that's one of the benefits of LED lighting.
Yes.
Something I work with. So when we have an actual reduction, we don't have a heat loss, we have an actual reduction in consumption.
Yes.
At the source.
Yes.
There's no loss in that. So, I think that's a great question because that's a perfect
When we
point.
made that decision to put in the rheostats or the dimmers, right, that we had some concerns that the LED bulbs were going to be too bright, and we wanted some control over them, and that would give us the ability to change it at different hours, whatever.
Correct.
How has it worked out? Do we have some real time now data? I mean, is the light brightness acceptable, or have we adjusted some of them?
We've been dimming 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Everything's down to 50% except on the major highways in
Is
Southampton.
that all automated? Does it
Yes,
stay all?
it's all automated. The schedule is set through.
Do it from your smartphone, Jeff.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
Um,
don't give him that smartphone, please.
Don't give him the app.
You could go through
I'll
the
be walking
Philips
down
Smart
Main
City
Street,
website.
Bridgehampton.
Exactly.
Watch this.
There's an asset management system that comes with the Philips Smart City node. Lets you set schedules, on major holidays, you can cancel those schedules out so everything's at full brightness. Has a lot of capabilities, also tells you when the fixtures are out for maintenance. So you don't have to be driving around looking for fixtures that are out, or you don't
Oh, wow.
have people calling you
Complaining
guys
or something,
saying
right.
that the light fixture's out in front of my house.
Now, on the maintenance of it, is this something that's, or simple maintenance, or is this something that's so complicated that you have to have a specialist maintain it?
It's a simple maintenance. If the fixture is dead or has been blown, you can just go up with a bucket truck, take the fixture down, put the new fixture up.
Okay.
It was taking our guys in the field about 15 minutes to do a fixture.
Now, are they under some warranty for a while? that-
Fixtures, there's a couple warranties, because there's a few fixtures, but the main Philips fixtures is a 10-year warranty.
10 year.
Should it go dead, should it die, then you send it back to Philips, they send you a new one for your charge.
All right, so we would take it down and send it, or you guys come and get it?
It depends on how the maintenance works out at the end of the project. Right now, your town would be doing the lighting replacement and take it down and send it and then get it back. If you have issues, obviously NIPA's here, call us, we'll call Philips, and we'll help facilitate.
And Kristen, your guys are trained to do this? Okay.
And it's not a bulb, it's
It's not a bulb,
Fixture
yeah.
head.
So
Fixture
if
head.
something goes, you just take the whole fixture
And
down.
Paul, I think part of we left some warehouse stock
Yes.
as well. So if a 50 watter goes out, you'll have one to do that day. Then you take the bad one and send it back to Philips, and they'll give you a new one to replace, so you continue to have warehouse
Oh, that's
stock.
great, so we don't have to
Yeah,
wait.
we left the facility stock for the replacement, and, everything could be dimmed, so if you even run out, if there was a 35 watt that is dead, and you don't have 35 watt, you can put a higher wattage and dim it down to where you need it to be, just for the meantime.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask an aside question because you're here and I've got the opportunity. I work with, in full disclosure, I work with visible light communications with LEDs. And this system that we have now, if we wanted to retrofit a system like that, because it's RF controlled or it's wirelessly controlled, we send a signal, we can actually communicate. So in some areas, they communicate with first responders and do things like that, that they're able to receive message that way when we're in areas where we have no connection, cell connection, and particularly in areas where there's communications is difficult that way. Although the system itself is connected in that way. Is that something that you guys have had any interest in, or have had any municipalities talk about? And
Or if
visible light communication with LEDs.
visual, like, can you elaborate more on that? I guess I'm just a little.
LEDs flash at a very quick rate.
Yes.
And so it's a communications arm.
Okay, I understand.
You'd have to adjust the way they flashed.
Yeah, it's
to create some kind of readable code that you can
Right.
then.
Yeah, and it's used in different municipalities already, particularly out
Yeah,
west.
we have not done anything like that before. I did hear of the technology. I'm not too knowledgeable on it, but I do know you can run communications through the LED. I do know you can run Wi-Fi signals, I think, through the LEDs as well, which is something that Philips, our partner in this program, is working on building that technology so that one day every town throughout the world could have Wi-Fi through their LEDs.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying that even though the light appears constant, it's actually going on and off. And you could continue to have it appear constant, but actually that some instrument could read those changes.
It's just a
and translate it?
photoreceptor. It turns it into a signal. So it's flashing, you see it as
So the naked
visible
eye,
light.
it still stays a
Right.
constant light?
It's like this. This is flashing, but you just don't see it.
That's pretty far out, but you're a smart guy. It's nice to have an engineer on the board, so.
Well, I don't.
If you have a municipality who's exploring that,
Need to know.
let's push the envelope.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to meet with them and
All right.
get on the ground and see if.
I mean, it's got a lot of applications, I think, particularly in the future.
A lot of our work has to be driven by energy efficiency, but then we can do add-ons like we're doing the cameras. We wouldn't necessarily say, hey, we do camera work, but we do lighting and energy efficiency.
Well, that's-
As an add-on, we can go down that path.
That's ultimately the goal, because
Yeah.
you can literally get pictures from that.
Right.
And, it saves putting cameras and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting time. Technology is moving very fast right now, so.
And NIPA's always looking for innovation.
I'm a total geek for
Back
this
on
stuff.
Earth.
All right.
They do innovation
Gee,
challenges.
we're moving
at
Southampton
NIPA.
into the future.
We could certainly, try to get a project that might make sense for NIPA to get involved in as an innovative type of thing and push the market forward.
All right, cool.
All right, so back to this.
Back to this.
Back to the present.
So anyhow, I guess we can go to the next slide. Am I controlling this thing?
Yeah, you
Okay.
just hit this
Okay.
forward to go. I think you missed a slide, though.
You did.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh,
The
okay.
most important
The
side.
most important, the benefits of this thing. So we sort of set up a quick little chart to, go from one, you have better light distribution with the LED lighting. They're far more directional, less backlight, less night sky light. So, there'll be, the light will go where you need it. The lifespan, 60 to 80,000 run hours. Yours could even exceed that with throttle them back for those 5-6 hours each day will actually extend the life. I like to think they're going to last at least 15 years. They say 25 or even 30 if you're dimming them down, but it seems like a long time out. And it hasn't been proven yet, but the color rendering of the new light is better. It's better quality light. So the dimming, you can actually dim these down to 10% if you ever needed to. If you were having an event, a fireworks display, the one person on a given street who just, the light is too much, even at the 50%, you can go all the way down to 10% if you needed to. But you still want to maintain safety. So there's this, you don't want to go too low and have the reverse effect. The old lights had no capability to be dimmed. And we went with the 3000 Kelvin here, which sort of mimics moonlight, and you can actually, the police like it. They could, more facial recognition and things of that nature, whereas the 2200 old HPSs, if they were still giving out 2200K, they probably weren't even at that. They weren't living up to their rating after 25 years. So you had the old yellowish kind of light that you don't have anymore, cleaner light. And our new fixtures are all dark sky compliant. So in essence, the night sky should be more visible than it was prior to the project.
In other words, they have the shading, the downward shading.
They're just very directional, and the actual nodes are
Here's an
underneath,
example of,
like the cap, and everything aims down.
Old versus new.
I'd like to elaborate a little bit more on the run hours. Obviously, we say 60,000 to 80,000 run hours. It's not like the fixture's going to die after 80,000 hours. There's a light loss factor that all manufacturers adhere to. So when the light output of an LED, as it's being run, it always degrades. So they say at 70% of that total light, that's when that light fixture is now no longer good. So that's what these run hours reflect. It should, your light fixture will be at 70% of what it's intended to be at. So the good scheme with the dimming is we're already dimming the 50%, so as these fixtures are 15 years old, we can maybe throttle back on the dimming strategy and put it at 75% dimming, and you guys will see the same exact light that you saw from at this point forward.
You know, the one benefit you didn't put on the list, probably the greatest benefit, is how little electricity they use.
Yes. We did forget to put that one. You're right. We are saving a lot of energy here.
A lot of so lower cost and less greenhouse gas emissions. Those to me are like the two biggest benefits. But these are all good benefits too.
These are sort of
just neglecting the
secondary
other.
benefits that
Secondary
just sort of happens as a result of the project. Yeah, you're right.
So the city smart technology, when it gets to that end of the life
when it's
number, it'll send us emails to say that light is on the list to get
yeah, it knows what wattage it's supposed to be, and when it gets down to a certain amount, it'll kind of fault the system, saying this should be replaced or something's a little bit wrong with this fixture, and you might know that it's getting towards its useful life, and you'll change the dimming strategy.
This is old, right? This is new.
And to put those hours, those run hours in perspective, essentially the assumption is that the light runs 4,380 hours a year, so 12 hours a day, 365. So then you get your 15, plus years timeline on the lifespan.
What percentage of energy does it take to run the new LED street lighting compared to the old ones, the existing ones that we have now?
So we were replacing, it was about 70 watt fixtures with 35 watts, 25 watts could have worked as well. It's like a 50% decrease in your electric usage. In some applications, the fixtures in Southampton were too high for the roads that they were on, so we were able to cut back even further to have a 75% savings.
Dim them, it's going to be even better.
Yes, exactly.
The rule of thumb is roughly 50% though when you go with an LED. But again, if you're starting out with a 400 watt, perhaps 140 watter on an LED makes the most sense. So you get a little bit more of that, delta. So
So besides, doing the right thing for the planet, that utility savings we sort of hoped would pay the debt service on putting these lights in.
Right.
From a fiscal standpoint.
Yeah.
Is it too soon to see if that's happening, or Len, have you looked
No,
at?
they, I don't know if you have the.
Yeah, we're going to touch on like the payback and stuff that ended up.
Move forward to it.
Yeah, because that was one of the, we like doing the right thing, but
wanna
we also
spend money
like
too.
keeping taxes low, so.
Of course. We're with you. So here's just a few pictures of the Cobra heads and what we installed, the deco lights. So 2,484 street lights were installed between those wattages. So you did some 160s, so you must have had some 400s that really certain areas on main streets really needed the illumination. All lights have the smart city controls, and again we went with the town ordinance on the 3,000K, which is right on for a community like this, and compliant with dark sky. The Acorns were 70 wattage, 60 watt, excuse me. Nice looking lights, actually. We're going to be, who am I sending here to take a drive?
Port Jefferson?
Port Jefferson.
I think you said.
We're taking on the Port Jefferson project. So they're going to, take a drive through, look at your decos.
And we have two of the Acorns right at Town Hall.
Yes.
At that southeast entrance, bottom of the stairs.
And that fixture is about as dark sky compliant as you could get at this point in time. It has no reflective glass on the globe area, so this is really state-of-the-art dark sky, and we actually went, consulted with the dark sky committee. They really loved this fixture.
I got to give them a lot of credit too. They've been working on things like this for so many years, and to see this happen, I'm sure they're very happy with that. And I always think of Gail Clymer,
Yes.
who was such a strong advocate.
We had a lot of
sure she's happy.
discussions over this, too.
Yes.
I'm really glad to see that come
And I
out.
think that they were also very supportive of this dimming technology as well, so.
And I think the aerial that you provide, I think that's important. I marked new and old just in case there's any confusion, but it's very evident what it is.
Yeah.
That
Those
aerial-
pictures were taken in Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Is
very
that
evident.
picture, the first one on the left, that's a new LED thing? Or is that what the old ones were?
Those are the new. Everything on there is
Everything
new.
up there is new, okay.
It's
Yeah.
just hard to see
Yeah.
small picture, and it's up pretty high.
I mean, the LEDs are very flat. The old Cobra has a bit more funky, rounder.
The other thing I want to mention in regards to this information is that when we started this project, we had no inventory of our lights in the town. We were going off of a mishmash of GIS had in more recent years put together, they had done like a Google Earth mapping. We had received some shape files from PSEG. We were getting billed for over 2,700 lights. Now we know that we actually have more like, to 2,490. So we should see a reduction in about 180 lights going forward as well, which will be a substantial savings too, now that we have this true inventory.
Can we get some of our money back?
Yes,
Also being worked on.
Yes, we've been in discussions.
We've been overbilled.
Yeah.
PSEG has said that they would give us some sort of credit. We're trying to work out exactly what that will be.
Okay, thank you.
Were we, in this project, were we able to take care of some of the broken lights? I know there was a community up in, I want to say, Northampton, Wildwood area.
Yes, I'm very pleased to say that that was all repaired.
That was, 'cause
Yes.
that was like a long-standing complaint
It
about
was,
those lights.
it was very old, it was from the 1950s infrastructure, it was buried power.
Under
So
some driveway.
There was a lot of broken lines from people over the years putting in aprons or their own posts at the end of their driveways. So thankfully, we were able to get that whole community
That's
back
great,
up.
because we had heard a lot of
Yeah.
complaints about that, and it's gone quiet.
Yep.
I've been in
Which
touch
I've
with
assumed that, maybe
there,
it
and
was
they're very
addressed.
happy, Yeah.
It's
That's
been a
good.
long road, but it's really,
I think
Well,
we were-
thank you. Thank you
Yes,
for making our
so-
phones a little quieter.
Yes,
One of-
we're very happy.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We also were able to get in the Bridgehampton corridor lighting.
Yes, there was
as
complaints
well
about
under
those
this-
lights,
This
too.
program too. So in that 1.3 mile of Bridgehampton corridor area, we added 20 new fixtures. We replaced 24 fixtures. We put a new pole and luminaire at the Rogers House intersection. And we were able to offset the costs by about 53,000 using the DASNY grants
Great.
from Laval and Thiel. And we also included the other lights in the Hamlet area under that grant as well with the replacements.
That's great. Thank you for mentioning that, too. I remember discussing that we were going to do that.
Yeah, and
It's
you
nice
know,
that it got done.
we got very competitive labor bidding on the project.
Yes,
And
we
also,
did.
when I initially had proposed this project, it was prior to Phillips winning the statewide materials bid. So the materials cost probably came in 20% lower, and the labor came in 20%. All of a sudden, we had $400,000 in the project available for more
Right.
stuff.
Which we supplemented the original project with the dimmers.
With the dimmers and the cameras, so you got a
Some
lot,
cameras and-
more than maybe we all thought we would get from the initial
That's good.
discussions. So it, turned out to be a great project, and able to add a lot onto it. Project costs and benefits. So we arrived at somewhere very close to $1.9 million for the project. NYPA will be reconciling final costs as the cameras get installed and the change orders, everything gets nailed down for that final piece of the work. But it's roughly $1.9 million. NYPA has financed the project during construction. Even that's a cost that's lower than we thought with the interest during construction. So you saved some money in that as
Right.
well. We basically say that the project's going to take a year, and you start accruing interest on $1.9 million at the beginning of the project. Clearly, that didn't happen,
Right, you moved
but we're
quickly.
very conservative with the estimates, so we get a good outcome. So as soon as the final reconciliation happens, the town will begin making monthly payments to NIPA, and we're going to sort of line that up with the anticipated energy savings and also some of the maintenance savings.
Well, yeah, it says in your last bullet at the top section, the monthly cost savings is greater.
So the monthly
loan payment.
Right, so if the payback, it becomes, if the payback, just throwing out numbers, is 8.1 years. Well, you could take an 8-year loan, but you'll be negative cash flow. When you go to a 9-year loan, well, then you're going to be positive cash flow. 'Cause,
What were the terms on the loan? How many years?
I think it's going to be...
Right now, we're going to recommend 8-year payback, 8 years payment.
So, and during those 8 years, we're going to be ahead even for those 8 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, by whatever, small amount.
We're estimating $28,000 cash flow positive
Cash
every
flow
year.
positive.
That's
great, and
estimates,
that's not
but-
even including our labor savings, because we don't have to do as much maintenance.
Yes.
Right.
So that's just on the electricity piece of it. But after 8 years, if these bulbs last 20 years,
Exactly.
we're way ahead.
Way ahead.
Financially.
Agreed. Financially,
Right.
yep.
Because we'll retire that loan after 8
$269
years.
annually in energy savings, energy and the maintenance, we factored both from, come year 8, or as soon as the loan's retired.
Yeah, that's $250,000 a year in savings after that 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, these LED street lighting projects they're great projects.
Yeah.
They're easy to implement.
Why
and
would
they just
any
save so much.
municipality not do this?
We agree.
Just from a financial perspective.
Can we give your number to some of the people?
I got a
Jeff's
couple of
talking
meetings
to?
set up next week.
100%.
Just show us where you're driving to other
Absolutely.
municipalities.
Great.
and we'll
A
do
lot
it.
of neighboring municipalities have been talking to me
Yeah.
and saying, we're waiting to see how, yours turned out, but everybody's starting to jump on board
Tara,
now.
I mean, look, we all
They're
try
watching.
to comply with
Yeah.
Governor Cuomo's, the tax cap. If you eliminate $250,000 in expenses,
It's a good
that
thing.
helps.
Yeah.
That's big.
And I should say also that this contributes to our energy independence goal in a major way.
Right.
Because of what we're saying.
And not that I want to take the attention away from the LED, but we're doing a lot of solar projects. And we're working with the town of East Hampton on solar. So,
Great.
and I know, and Frank's not here, but he came to a meeting. There he is. Hey, Frank. He's part of the Solar Long Island Consortium. So NIPA offers full-scale renewable project opportunities.
We'll talk.
And advisory
Yeah,
services.
well, we've been talking.
So we'd be happy to, develop proposals and see how we can, push that forward. So anyhow.
No,
just
it's
look-
great, because, how many opportunities do you get to actually reduce costs and, be better for the environment?
Right. It's
A lot.
A lot of the stuff is a no-brainer, very, very little risk
Yeah.
associated with doing some of this stuff. Especially with the solar. The risk goes on the developer in most cases, so.
Yeah, sometimes people are willing to pay more to be energy efficient. Here, we get to pay less and still be
Yeah.
energy efficient. It's
Yeah.
good.
And
Good deal.
and we do have some major solar plans in front of us. So I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Good.
Absolutely.
And that's my cue.
Oh, no, but we're also working on the HVAC project within Town Hall to change out all the lights here to a LED fixture. And the way the program is working with South Fork Peak Savers and PSEG, we'll get the lights hopefully at no cost for the majority of the duration of the
These lights?
project. All throughout town, for the ones that we could do by the end of 2020, and they'll actually offer us a cost rebate to offset the install costs as well.
Great.
So, we're carrying the momentum
Yeah.
across the board
Good.
as much as we can.
Absolutely. And that's a great program, that South Fork Peak Shavers. It's almost like a super incentive. You get the PSEG base incentive, but then you get this other one because you're in this area where there's a, tremendous summer load increase, you guys know.
Yeah,
So
where it
it's a
makes
great
sense for
program.
us just from the municipal standpoint. So I think we put the first solar panel on a little building on the beach. But when you start to extrapolate that out to what our savings would be on our municipal buildings as well, just municipal buildings,
Yeah.
not the rest of it, it's significant. So that's,
Yeah.
we're all moving in that direction.
No, I get to meet a lot of people all over the state, and I find on Long Island, and you guys and the town of Huntington are ahead of everybody.
Good to hear.
Yeah, no question.
All right.
And taking it on in your buildings and all sorts of stuff. So
Way to go, Hunter.
And Jay, it speaks to the the amount of emission reduction there.
Yeah,
that's in the
greenhouse gas emissions and about 100 cars off the road, so it's all adding up. Okay. More project highlights, like Christine said, the Montauk Highway piece in Bridgehampton, the Southampton beach huts with lighting.
Man, what is the Southampton Beach Hut?
It's referring to our attendance booths at the entrance of our beaches, yeah.
There was no lighting to
Not the
begin
beach
with,
huts,
so we added lighting.
The gin joints, not the.
Depends on the time of day.
They're nice too, though.
That's what we called them on the project.
No longer.
Yeah, you did the smart city. Some of this is getting redundant as we're talking. The warranty we've touched on. Do they have all the warranty information yet, Paul, or you'll be getting a final packet? With
Yeah, they don't have all of it, but your warranties are 10 years for the Philips fixtures. The decorative fixtures are a 10-year warranty on just the LED driver, and the facility fixtures are a 5-year warranty.
And Smart Cities, 10 years.
And the Smart
Cities
Cities,
is
10
also.
years as well.
And you have a 10-year platform for the smart cities, so you get all this access, and the supervisor can play with lights in the middle of the night if he wants to.
They don't change colors, though, unfortunately.
I've seen you. I've seen you in action.
We're dimming the lights.
If he touches something, he breaks it like me?
Yeah.
On a romantic evening.
Okay.
I do have a question about the security cameras. Now, we were told that the security cameras are going to be fixed on town properties for security purposes, to watch things overnight. That's where they're going to be, correct?
Yes.
2 locations.
Yep.
There's 2. There's 70 cameras going up in total. 35 are going on town facilities, parks, things like that. Another 35, we've been working with the police. They're going on your roadways to, some of them are going to have
So they're not
license
in
plate
yet?
readers. They're not in yet,
The
no.
video cameras are not in yet.
No, not yet. We're working on the change order now. They should be approved soon, going in the contract with our contractor for the security work shortly.
When you say they go in the lights, what exactly does
These
that mean?
won't go in the lights. We're mounting them to the fixture arms, the arms that are holding the fixtures.
And then there will be a device that they'll plug into to get their power source.
Yes.
And that fixture will be on top of the light fixture.
So there's that node that plugs into the top of the fixture. That's the Smart City node. So we're going to take that off really quick, add this owl device, we call it doohickey. It's actually, I think, their technical name. You plug that doohickey there and you throw the Smart City on top, and then that thing gives us the power that's required to power the security cameras.
Is a technical.
Where does the camera actually sit?
The camera is going to be mounted to the fixture arms. We couldn't mount to the poles because we would have been charged more money by PSEG.
And we would have had to put in metering.
And would have had to been metered, so it's just going to be hanging on the fixture. We have a whole mounting strategy that's been approved by a civil engineer.
That's where it's
So this is sort of a new thing. You guys have modified.
See that picture?
Yes.
That's where the camera goes.
Yeah, the first picture on that slide.
Let me back up.
There was a whole controversy about this. I don't know if you remember, about 4 months ago, I came and I said, we can have a whole big cluster, because it was,
Yeah, I remember that.
LIPA or PSEG wanted thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yes, they did.
And we had this big meeting in Nassau County on biggest conference room I've ever been in my life. And everybody in the country was in this room to talk about our lights fixtures.
Yeah, we had France there, I think.
Yeah.
Germany was
France,
there.
conference call. I'm like, really?
It's important.
Anyway, we worked it out, and we said, I said, we just want to get after a long meeting, we went back and we said, well, what if we just stuck it on our arm instead of putting a new arm for the camera? Oh, well, you can do that. And no other charges? No other charges. Okay, thank you, done. Everybody went home.
All right.
But it had to go on that arm instead of a separate arm.
Yeah.
The separate arm caused all kinds of havoc.
The reason being is you already own that arm. So it's your property, you're paying for that arm to be mounted already to that pole. So since you already own it, you can add more to it.
Right.
I know New York City has an extensive camera program throughout the city. They have thousands of them. This would be similar. There would be
Yeah, it
some
would
kind
be
of
similar. I don't think as robust.
nerve center.
You
Somebody.
can build on what we have.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And it's all going to be tied into the police department in their communications, they're going to be board. We'll have a panel wall with all TVs, flat screens, that will be individually gridded, and you can highlight and look on them from the police dispatch room.
So you'll be able to see traffic and things like that.
If you want, I mean, there's a lot of cameras. You really won't be able to focus on it.
This is more, it records for a certain amount of time. So if there was an accident, you'd be able to get some information about the accident.
On all the cameras all the time.
If there's a crime that might occur, you can rewind basically, right?
Well, particularly our parks areas that aren't manned.
That infrastructure was part of the design. See, the cameras are just the one piece, but you need the backbone, which is all of the video management systems.
Right.
So we had to expand, part of the project accounts for a lot of that backbone, which is data processing, we need.
Storage.
That's all at the police, that's at the police.
Yes, and it's not just storage, but you can process those images at
Well, we
various
have to
uses.
pay for licenses from Blackstone?
Milestone.
Which is a company that we use to manage our video imaging.
So that resides at police headquarters, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a software that the town is already currently using, and this will be compatible with that software system, so that the town is on one system and not various different softwares they have to go into.
So is this something that will require more labor from the police department? I mean, this is not a question for you.
No.
Okay.
They wanted this.
Yeah. This should help them.
Yeah, this should actually.
This should help the detectives if they have a.
Helps dispatch,
if
makes
there's
it more efficient.
The license plate reader should automatically pull plates that are hot, they can come and.
Help them with investigations.
Yeah, it should help a lot. I mean, they wanted a lot more cameras.
Help solve
What wound up
crime.
happening was we got a budget crunch. We had only so much money to work with, so they wanted another 35 or 50 cameras, so they had to get what they had to get.
I think it's worth noting that the cameras don't only help solve crimes, they deter crimes.
Yes, if you see a camera, you're not going to do anything.
Yeah, that's right. They're very effective in deterring crimes.
And a lot of this portion is getting the backbone infrastructure in place, so going forward, hopefully adding the cameras themselves shouldn't be, as
Right, if you see it really working
expensive.
and want to put another 20 in, phase 2 or something.
So it's easy to do.
Yes.
This is a perfect area where if you had a benefactor, it'd be a nice gift.
Are you offering?
No, he's suggesting we find somebody.
Find some benefactors that want to give us.
But if you want to put a plaque on the pole to recognize them,
Can't do
you'll have to
that.
pay.
But,
The camera will be on it.
I think for those who are concerned about Big Brother, I mean, these cameras are basically all in the downtown areas, or major type of intersections. We're not trying to spy on people. These are areas where you shouldn't be expecting privacy in downtown. You've got stores with video cameras in lots of locations.
Well, we also have assets to protect that are in non-residential areas that sit there, and we've had some issues over the last year with that. So
I
it's
think
important.
the traffic cameras that were available at the time of the US Open, even though they may not have been under town control, were very, very helpful to the police department in terms of the traffic coordination of the US Open.
Sure.
And just seeing how it was, being able to monitor it. So you wouldn't think that, but that's where these cameras could be helpful as well, as monitoring traffic situations.
And will other municipalities have access to the cameras?
What do you mean?
Police department, state, federal?
Well, they can
I
come
mean-
to us to review them, but
They're not networked.
We're not giving them an open feed into our headquarters, no.
Okay.
Is there anything else? Does that brings us to the end?
That's it.
No,
That's-
just,
So, it sounds like, there's the only piece left to be done is the cameras, right?
That is
Everything
correct.
else is done.
Just reconciling all the costs and starting, the loan process.
Starting the loan, so we're not paying you guys yet for it.
no,
You
not
fronted
yet.
everything so
We're
far.
still fronting it, no
Still
problem.
fronting it, and so that's great, so that when our costs begin, it's simultaneous to our electricity savings.
Yep.
In fact, we're already getting the electricity savings, right? Now, we should, right, because they're operating.
They owe us some money right
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
There's,
Well, there's the issue with the overbilling.
Hopefully, we'll look at it.
We've reported to PSEG your new inventory though, right, Paul? Has that happened?
Yeah, the
Yes,
bills
they
have
should
to
have
adjust, they're
everything.
not
They
having.
just haven't
It might
adjusted
take
yet.
PSEG a couple of months to get their antiquated system, reloaded with your new inventory.
They did
But-
commit to giving us back to the date that they were installed, though. So all of the lights have their installation date on this massive spreadsheet that we're sending them. We did send them the updated spreadsheet. We've had like very minor tweaking after that, just as, you know, we've come across certain like wattages that were reported too high or this or that. So we should have the complete final 100% spreadsheet by the end of this week. And then I'm going to work with the comptroller's office to break that into, there's various bills, lighting bills that we have. So we're going to break it into each of those bills, and then each street lighting district will have their accurate count.
Oh, good. Can I ask you guys, since you guys do a lot of hydroelectric, have you done anything with tidal power, you know, using currents, anything like that? Because that's like an emerging field. They're doing a lot of wind turbines that are visible, but there's this tidal pull in certain areas that could potentially be
I've
an
heard
energy
of it.
generation.
I know SUNY Maritime they're having a
East River.
student project going on right now where the engineering department is installing some tidal mills down underneath because they're right at Hell's Gate or wherever. They're just in a big current area.
The East River.
Yeah. So I was talking with their energy manager there, trying to see, hey, let me know, get some of the data out of this project you guys are doing, see if it is a viable option for us to come in and implement for you guys. So I don't think we've done anything yet like that. I know up in Niagara where our main plant is, it would make sense to put something in the Niagara River because that's flowing very fast.
Well, we may have some data for you. So we've been compiling quite a bit of data in that regard, particularly in the issue that we have with excessive nitrates in our bay water. So looking at flushing methodologies to help alleviate some of those issues, particularly with the Shinnecock Canal.
The water flows
and
pretty
Shinnecock
fast in there,
Inlet.
so-
You know, one of
So
the
there's
things-
ways to do that, and
John's been looking at, what do you call it, tidal gates?
Tidal
as a
gate
possibility of mitigating some of the flooding.
but the numbers are kind of staggering in the power production side of that. That's
That built
really
into a tidal gate, you know, you could have a turbine, you know, so as the water is rushing in and out.
Yeah,
you
just
generate
produce
power.
some free energy.
It's more his thing.
Yeah.
you know.
No, it's definitely.
Modern grist mill.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you
exactly.
solve a lot of different problems. You improve the water quality by flushing, you reduce the flooding by letting the, you know, the back bay pressure out, and as it's going out, you're generating electricity. It could be, you know, a triple play, so to speak. So.
Yeah, it's a massive amount of energy that's potentially available. there.
Your firm is doing sort of an engineering
No,
study
no,
of
it's
that
not my
feasibility,
firm.
or-
I'm just, I'm a
That's his
citizen.
councilman.
I'm a
If
citizen
engineers
councilman.
are interested in looking at it,
We should run that up the flagpole, see if we could do some
Yeah.
sort of a feasibility analysis.
we'd love that.
I would like to work with SUNY Maritime on it, see if they have
Yeah.
something out of it.
If they've gotten anything out of it,
Yeah.
we can build on that.
I
We
mean,
set-
we've talked with the EFC.
We could
and
set up a
different
follow-up
groups.
meeting. It doesn't have to be a work session, but if, you know, maybe John and I and meet in my office with your guys and see if we can create like a white paper.
Yeah, yeah.
It's on the radar. It's just, you know, we gotta just build the traction at NIPA to make it happen.
Right. Yeah, we do have some funds potentially available for improving water quality that may be able to be used.
No, we're looking for exciting, innovative projects. So at a certain point, we're doing a lot of street lighting, but it's like rinse and repeat, so we would love to do something really neat.
Yeah,
like,
it's one of,
you know,
one of
get
those
into
things
that,
that's
so.
an infrastructure project, you know, but out here, the aesthetics of our beaches are absolutely paramount to our economy, so it's all out of sight, and, you know, that has its challenges too, but it also has a benefit, which is interesting, because we get different tidal cycles that we can take full advantage of. Just along our south shore and along our north shore as well. So it's an interesting concept to look at. It's not unprecedented, certainly.
Has it been done elsewhere?
It's been done elsewhere, particularly in Europe, in Holland, and those
Yeah, they're always
areas, but
ahead of us.
also in
It's always good when you don't
Massachusetts.
have to reinvent the wheel, so.
Yeah.
And NIPA likes to be a leader in technology, so, you know, we always are trying to do pilot projects. We have a whole research and development department that's, you know, trying to, you know, giving free projects away to municipalities and mostly SUNYs to, you know, see if this technology works and roll out a whole program with it.
Okay.
Great. Well, I'd be happy to lay it out to you and, you know, see what you think and
Yeah, he's-
let you talk some more.
Take my card, John. Oops, sorry.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Really well done, Kristen.
Yes.
You know, I got a pat on the back. Really well done, from start to finish. Thank you, guys. And let's talk about what's next.
Kristen, has Leonard Frank talked to you about the street lighting unit? Has he updated you?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a meeting scheduled.
You guys are gonna talk about that, okay.
We're going to flush that out a little bit, since that's the term you like to use.
Thanks, well, they talked about how electric had been, having all these engineers, and like, it just,
Kathleen has the law books out, that's it. You should sit in the middle, because this is really all you need.
I will ultimately be the biggest supporter.
Yeah, but it's been tried before.
No, not like, it has been tried like this.
No.
Just throw some culverts out there and hope for the best.
Yeah, no.
All right, so we are moving along, right on schedule here. So we're gonna talk about creation of a water supply area. And this has come up in relationship to the East Quogue area that's been impacted somewhat by these emerging contaminants, PFAS in particular.
Thank you.
You know, East Hampton is has taken certain steps to extend water mains into areas that are impacted by these chemicals. Their problem is much more significant in terms of the amount of homeowners that have been affected. We were notified at one point by the DEC that there was concerns after a water sample was taken in the vicinity of Damascus Road inactive landfill that exceeded the health advisory level. The health department then did a series of private well samples in an area that they delineated. Some of them had detections. Most with detections were very low. There were, I believe, 2 detections that were above the health advisory limit of 70 parts per trillion. Those properties were put onto these POET systems. We, for a while, delivered clean bottled water to everyone while we were waiting for their results. Again, anyone who didn't meet the standards was addressed with these POET systems, those 2 properties. The third property as well.
There was even one that was
Close.
64 PPTs, and they were also provided with a POET system.
Right. So the conversation then came about, well, can we, some of the properties, about 40 or so, 44 of them, already have a water main that they can tap into, right? So people who are on private wells could pay the money to Suffolk County Water Authority and connect in. We've been exploring whether there's a mechanism where the town could lay out the money for them to connect in and charge it back in the tax bill. That's something we're going to talk about. And for the areas that don't have water main extensions, could we put water mains into those areas? Should we put water mains? And how does that get paid for? So there is a state had authorized a program where the CPF money could be used to extend water mains in contaminated areas. My understanding is that still has not been signed by the governor. So if we were to set up some sort of district to either do the water main or do primarily those connections once the water main is in place. And we do have a joint request, I believe, with Suffolk County Water Authority, a grant request to fund the extension of the water mains. So what we're going to talk today, I guess, is about how we would create a tax district. Now, my understanding is that if we're going to put it into the tax bill, so if somebody's going to connect, there's a tapping fee, and then extending to the home a cost as well. So that could be anywhere from $6,000 combined to $10,000, something in that range. If we were going to lay out the money and charge it back in the tax bill, apparently there's no mechanism to do that other than to put those people into a tax district and then assess it back on a benefit-based formula so that the property that benefited would be the only property that's paying for it. So that's where really kind of what our conversation is going to be about. We're joined by Kathleen Murray, our Deputy Town Attorney, Lynn Marchese, our Controller, and Frank Sapone, Deputy Supervisor. So Kathleen, I guess I'll kick it to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good morning, board members. So there's really two issues. I'm just going to break it down a little bit. The first issue is the extension of the mains in an area. And in order to achieve that extension, you can do a special improvement district, either a water district or a water supply district, under Town Law Article 12A or Town Law Article 12C. So what we've been looking into are really the differences between 12A and 12C and what those mean for you as policymakers and the decisions you have to make. 12A is much like the other special improvement districts that you've worked on, including your beach erosion control districts. So 12A, you would identify an area in the town. It could be townwide or it could be a specific area. You would identify those boundaries and we would work towards a map plan and report together with the Suffolk County Water Authority to create a district specific to those benefited parcels. So only the parcels within that district would be benefited by the extension of the water mains. The other possible avenue, which is what East Hampton actually utilized, is Article 12C. We haven't used 12C before, but doesn't mean we can't start now. And what 12C says is that you can basically have a water supply area, but the difference is that you can charge the people that are benefited by the extension of those mains, but you can also charge everyone else in the town outside of village. So you can do a partly paid by your benefited parcels and partly paid by a part-town general fund tax. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does, but how do you distribute? So
So
if everybody's paying for it, are the people who are benefiting directly paying a bigger piece of it?
So the people who are benefited directly pay on a benefit basis, which you identify, and you determine as the town board what that benefit is and the cost attached to that. And then your part-town residents, your town outside of village residents who are paying, they pay on an ad valorem basis. And so then you identify in your map plan and report what that ad valorem basis is. And those two parts come together to pay that full cost. So that's a mechanism that you don't see a lot because as a town board, you're charging people who aren't necessarily benefited, whereas under 12A, you're always charging only the benefited
Is
people.
that just for the extension portion, or is that the?
So that's just the
That's
extension
27.
portion. As it relates to the
That's
hookup
12C
fees.
or 12A? That is?
12C.
That was C.
Plain both.
12C
It
is
was
both.
12C. So in
12A.
East Hampton, I think the number, I want to say it was like around $10 million, the water main extension. And the entire town paid that. I don't know what benefit, what distribution they did to the properties that were in the area of the water main extensions.
We can
They had
try-
a lot, it was a big project in East Hampton.
Indeed.
Before we
And-
get to the hookup fees, I do have a question.
Yes.
So in East Hampton, they did two tax districts, right? They did a town-wide excluding the villages to pay for the water mains, and then a separate tax district for the hookups.
No.
No?
So I don't believe so, if I may. I have taken a look at their authorizing resolutions. What I think they did under 12C is, when you say a townwide district, that's just that portion of town outside of village that's paying the ad valorem basis, right? And then they identified a water improvement or water supply area with their benefited parcels. But it was one mechanism under 12C. Does that make sense?
They gave different
It does.
valuation
Yeah.
methodologies.
I
So
didn't
they
know you
were in
could do
two
that,
different
but-
districts. Well, and we've never done it before because as a policy consideration, you have to tax those that aren't necessarily benefited, right? All of your town outside of village residents. So that's why you don't see it a lot. But that, as I can understand from their resolutions, that's what they decided was best for their town.
Now, they did an emergency declaration as well, didn't they?
They might have. That's a little bit different, and that
they-
might speak to the hookup issue. If you'd like to address the hookup issue, I don't know the Councilman Scavone, did you want to?
Well, I wanted to ask the difference between Article 12A and Article 12C as it relates to state funding opportunities. Which one, in your opinion, and it's a big ask, would be more beneficial to obtain state grants for the installation of water mains or the extension of water mains?
So I'm actually not prepared to answer that. Maybe we could ask our local assemblyman. I don't see legally any difference, but it might be best we take that question to our state representatives.
On that question, I don't know whether one is better than another, but the grant program that we're aware of is, I think it's a 60%, so there's still a 40% local match. There is potentially money out there. Now, East Hampton, I think when they applied, it was a larger contribution. It might have been 80 or 90% of the, they've changed it now to 60. But they went ahead and did the bond before knowing they had the money.
Right.
They did get the money, and that's significant to the taxpayers that might not be benefiting. That's a relief, and I think the town was relieved when they received that money. But there was a risk. So
just to add a point to the question that Tommy John raised, in the grant application, it does ask, have you established a taxing district associated with the implementation of this project? And if we answer yes, then we have to provide in the grant application the documentation that verifies that it has been formally established, the boundaries associated with that, and the taxing mechanism and how we're going to apply that taxing mechanism to the constituents within that taxing district. So we would have to supply all that information as part of the grant application. I remind the board that the grant application is due January 11th.
Of course it is.
The clock is ticking.
Because everything's always last.
So, Len, have you?
Wait, can I ask a question on the?
Yeah, go ahead, 'cause I don't want to get to the numbers
Which could
on
be
this project.
incredibly complicated or incredibly stupid, I don't know. But the people that are that already have extensions and are already hooked up, they're going to be paying for everybody else to get hooked up. Is everybody going to absorb the cost of what they're already paying because they were hooked up?
So I think I can answer your question by saying, if you are a town outside of Village resident and you already have public water, you still will be assessed.
Are you paying twice?
You still will be assessed.
In a way.
I want to understand it.
The people that are getting the individual hookups, and I think Kathleen is going to get to that,
Right.
are going to pay more.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
but that's
I
not her
understand that,
question.
but
It's a
part of
water
the fee that we pay
Yes.
is
For
for
the-
the infrastructure.
for the water main.
water mains that we already did. So
That's
we
why
would,
it's
those
contra-
people
that's
would be
not-
paying
You're
twice.
correct,
she
and
said to
that's
begin
why
with.
you
That's
don't
what she
see
said
a
to
lot.
begin with.
But yes.
Oh, no, she didn't say that. Okay. No, you
Yeah,
explained
so
it
if you
better.
are a town outside of the Village resident, and, which obviously most of you are, and you already have public water, so you pay that, maybe you have your own contract with Suffolk County Water Authority, you still will be assessed for this extension, if this town board decides to do it under 12C. If you decide to do it under 12A, then you would not. Then it would just be those areas that you have identified.
I don't know it's really, you're paying twice. I think in a way you are, but I think it's the people who are in the area where the new water main is going in, they are benefiting by having that infrastructure paid by everyone, right?
know, I get
Whereas
that,
when
but
you put your infrastructure in, just the people who benefited from that infrastructure carried the cost of that infrastructure. In this case, the entire town would be carrying the cost of their infrastructure.
I know, I'm just trying to, like, I'm
So there's
just
an unfairness
piggybacking.
there,
I
but-
don't, I'm just trying to understand it, because last night we talked about how the infrastructure with Suffolk County Water Authority would be borne by the entirety of everybody.
That's different. You're not talking about a special improvement district scenario, as I understand it, in that conversation. That's a different conversation. That I believe
And if we,
separate and apart.
if we separate that out, that being the extension of the mains,
Right.
and we forget the taxing district and just rely on the town's 40% subsidy and the 60% from the grant.
Right.
That 40% is town money. Every taxpayer is going to bear the burden of that 40%. And what it does for the residents in that community is relieves them of what we often leave out of the conversation, because to connect as a private resident, you pay the tap fee, you pay the service line fee, and you pay also what's known as a surcharge. The resident pays all of that. The surcharge is Suffolk County Water Authority's assessment of what your fair share of the capital improvement
Right, that's what I'm
costs are.
talking about.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm talking
so
about.
that's
But
included
that'd be
in
paying
that.
twice.
if we pay for the extension of the mains, we are relieving that small portion of the surcharge, but now we're still disseminating the repayment of that, in this case, possibly $500,000, to every taxpayer in the district, because that money's going to come
So
out.
basically, the people are getting credited for the surcharge portion by now that not being part of their
Right.
sole cost, they're
Those
gonna be-
people, but you
so
as
it's not a double then.
you as a resident in Watermill,
double, but other
in your water bill to Suffolk County Water Authority, you're paying a piece that relates to your infrastructure, and then in your tax bill to the town, you'd also be paying a portion of the people in East Quogue's infrastructure. So you're
Right.
sort of paying double.
Well, it's not double, it's just different.
Yeah.
Like, I understand it.
Well, and I don't want to overstep what
No,
I think
go ahead.
Kathleen is going to mention anyway, is it's still unclear whether we actually have the legal authority to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I
We're
would think so.
continuing to do that
Which
research.
part's unclear?
It's unclear, well, I don't want
It
to.
sounds like 12C would allow the town outside the village to cover the cost of putting that water main in.
Water mains, I don't think are questioned. It's
not the water
Right, so the question of hooking it up,
That's the-
covering up
that's
the.
the service
line.
Right.
Right, so the bringing of the water from the road to the residence, we call it the hookup fee, the statute calls it the supply pipe.
And then the tapping fee, right? There's two fees.
I'm not speaking about the tapping fee, I'm just talking about the hookup. So the extension of the water main, the water from the road in front of your house to your home is called the hookup fee and/or the supply pipe. That cost, it's not clear that that cost can be amortized or borne by the town. I appreciate that East Hampton is doing it. They are helping to amortize that cost. They're not paying for it, they're laying the money out.
It's like
and
a
then-
loan.
Correct. So we're looking into that with our bond counsel.
Well, why wouldn't that be a project of the water district, right? With the only benefit being the one house, so that house would have 100% on a benefit-based formula and an assessment.
Supply area, or are you talking about a water district within a supply area?
Let's say use 12C and you put everybody outside the village, and then I guess you can create the supply area line.
Sure.
And you say, okay, there's a project we're doing in the supply area line. It just involves whoever's hooking up. Maybe 10 houses are gonna hook up. And each of those, everybody's gonna pay zero except for those houses within the taxable district because they're the benefit and they're gonna pay based on their exact benefit, which is the cost of their supply line.
Over a number of
The
years.
statute treats the supply line differently than the extension of the main.
So that's what you're trying to figure out.
Mhm.
So in East Hampton's case, their view or their understanding of the law is that that can be placed into the tax bill on a benefit-based
Did
formula.
they give you a legal opinion that says that?
So I'd like to define, can we define what the problem is? Because we've asked this before, that, originally there were homes, when the Suffolk County Water Authority was established, people paid to be hooked up. That was born back in that time period. Many people, not many people, but some people opted out of actually hooking up to the Suffolk County Water Authority. Now you have some homes that are still on wells, but I still don't have a sense of how many that is. And we talked, and I think I'd asked for this data, is how many private wells do we have right now in the town of Southampton, so that I can compare that against what the 1.2 million customers.
We've asked that question of Suffolk County Water Authority, and they're doing that
They are,
research.
okay.
'Cause some of the record keeping about who, some of the record keeping about who
There's a
who has a private well, who doesn't have a private well, is not as reliable as one would like to think, because it's up to the well driller to report the activity of their work to the Suffolk County Health Department, and that isn't always reported accurately.
John's trying to get to the point where if we were to do it, why just do this district when you might have a need throughout other areas of the
Because
town
we've
as well?
seen-
So once we're going through it, maybe we should look at it in a bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you did under 12C, the whole town outside of villages.
And then
Yeah, but
you
then you're
item.
not just talking
Then
10
you'd have the
million, you could be
district.
talking.
Well, I don't
how
know,
much,
that's
right,
why I don't know what
I
it
know.
is,
Yeah,
that's my
I-
point, so I can't really. make
Becomes
it-
a bigger
Yeah.
thing to establish that kind of size of a district.
And it may not
So
be,
easy.
I don't know.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
the problem.
I would think.
So is
Well,
it,
and
Though
that-
if we
that-
did
that
this-
Data point is related to, as is the case in this area, we might have another, make up a number of 500 private wells throughout town, all of them within walking distance of an existing main, or all of them 8 miles away from an existing main. So that number is going to vary considerably. We would then, once we got the location of potentially all of the existing private wells, and the only one we can turn to is then, in my opinion, we would turn to Suffolk County Water Authority and say, what's the proximity of existing mains, and what's the cost associated with extending mains, so those additional 500 people could also have the capacity to attach to a main.
But it's also the distance between the main, the service line to the home and the main. right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because, and as we know, in many of our areas of town, there are a number of flag lot arrangements where people could be 200-300 feet off the street, and someone 30 feet off the street, the service line connection is substantially different on a per linear foot cost.
Because as I recall, back then, and I remember it, because I think it was a company called LA Water, which had the contract at the time to hook the service lines up from the mains. And the reason people opted out was because it was, they felt at that time was prohibitively expensive because of the distance from their home to the main. And that didn't, now we have more build out, we have homes further on. I have no sense of what that number is.
And those are important questions. I'm sure all the board members recognize that. A concern that often comes to my attention and that I share is we have a potentially much larger issue to have to deal with. But right now, we have a smaller issue that's getting lost in the sauce, so to speak, in terms of where it's a challenge to focus on, and on the map that you have, this I don't know, lavender-colored area, I guess is the best way to describe it, existing Damascus. That's where the core of our concern comes from right now, and there's a challenge on how to address that concern if that were the only place, but you can see by the map's extension to the west that survey areas keep growing almost exponentially. If you look at this, they've doubled, and in some cases tripled in size. So how do we find a way to address the concerns in an immediate community where there's some problems identified, which affects probably 90 to 100 residents in that community, but also lay the foundation for addressing an issue that might eventually spread to a town-wide.
Right, and you have to, this is a
We have to
precedent
walk and
that
chew
you're gonna
bubblegum at the
set.
same time
So,
in this regard.
Frank, we have an estimate from Suffolk County Water Authority as to what it would cost to extend water mains in this magenta or lavender area.
Correct.
To those, because most of it has water mains, but there's a section, and it's what, about $1 million
About
roughly?
$1.2 million.
So we have a mechanism now that if we wanted to, we could sort of pull the trigger and have that water main installed, and people would then have the option to hook up. We don't have that piece resolved as to how they hook up. They might have to just do it themselves. Do we know how many people are on private wells in the area, that you probably don't have this answer, where the main isn't extended, who have detections of PFAS in their drinking water?
I could give you there are about 44 people outside of the main, water main connection area, and among those 44, about 28 to 30 of those, I did a count, but I'm having trouble recalling the number, have had some detection. None of those 28 are above 10 PPTs, but there are some people in the area that currently have private wells, unable to connect to a main, who have had slight detections of
So they're not only below the HAL, but even people have talked about lowering the HAL to 20 parts or 14 parts. They're below even that. So, but we have a way to do it now. We have a way to do it. We could say, we want to get it done. Let's establish this district. Let's put that water main in. There are a few other things going on that the board should be aware of. So the DEC, or the Health Department, has expanded kind of the look area. There was a recent detection on the spot that said Canine Kennel, which is at Grabetsky Airport, just north of there. There was a groundwater well that showed, I want to say, 17,000 parts per trillion, the highest reading we've seen. PFAS. And the health department is conducting an extensive investigation, kind of moving north from that canine kennel, and also in the surface waters around the Quogue Wildlife Refuge. They're also conducting private well samples in the Quogue area and the area that says the new East Quogue survey area. We don't have that data yet, so we might want to wait to find out, if there's other water mains that would need to go in, so it could all be kind of put together into one project. But now that we do have a mechanism, because I know some have said, you guys aren't moving fast enough as a board. East Hampton moved fast. They didn't ask who's responsible. They didn't ask who's going to pay, who should be paying for it. They went ahead, put that water main in. And, we could do the same thing. We could take this area that we've got priced out already and say, we're going to establish this district and we're going to put it in. It's a policy
And that's
decision.
subject to permissive referendum?
Yes.
So now, potentially, that water main could be paid for with CPF funds if the governor signs that law.
For the main.
The water main. So we don't have an answer yet onto whether we can make funds available to help people hook into the main. That's unanswered yet. We're still researching that.
But there are steps that you can take that are not contrary to the ultimate goal of helping that area. You can do things now. You don't.
Right.
We also,
Let's do them.
we've also looked into contracts for testing the current wells. Again, if we chose to retest, we have contracts that we could put in place immediately to offer testing to those residents that may want to get their wells retested.
We investigated that, Len and I think John McDonald investigated that option because we get many questions from residents in the community that say, my well was tested 10, 12, 16 weeks ago, and I don't know, is it the same, is it better, has it gotten worse? And there are also some people who on their own, including the two that you mentioned earlier, Jay, who at their own expense went ahead and installed POET systems, and we've reached out on their behalf to the Suffolk County Health Department to retest their wells, because Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones have said, I've invested $6,000 to put in a POET system. I'm not really sure whether or not it's doing what I paid for. The answer is get your installer to investigate it, and they're going to charge me another X number of dollars. So they've reached out to us, and we've reached out to the health department saying, could you please go back and retest those areas, just as out of an abundance of
But
caution.
we've gotten pretty much the answer no from the health department,
Exactly.
right? They're
They
not
have- they
willing.
have
So
been
I think there's
unwilling
a
to do that.
question, a policy question. Can we fund a second round of testing in this area to see if anything has changed? Your answer is yes, we can? And can we test that?
Policy question, the legal question
Well,
is yes.
no, there's a-
Policy decision is.
So the legal question is,
Financial question is, yeah.
so
Legal questions,
because we're getting data,
Health
We can-
safety welfare.
because we're getting data on groundwater quality
Yeah.
from this testing,
Yes.
we can pay for that. And was Frank, what is it, like $500 a test?
No, it's actually considerably less than
We
that.
did a
It's
bid, we put out our own bid.
And what did you,
Came in about 150 per resident. The low bidder did, and we're going to have a
Wow.
conversation with that bidder. So if every one of the 117 people decided to get retested, we're talking
Oh.
about $15,000, $16,000, $17,000.
I think we should do that. Honestly, I think we should get
Do
Do it.
do
Well,
that.
That's why we're
I-
presenting it to you.
I would
Is that an
say,
insult? Because I said it was a no-brainer, and you go, that's why we're presenting it to you.
no, and
I want to give you questions you can really answer.
including those,
It's not your question, is it?
Frank, including those who've installed POET systems. Because they should get tested too.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
All
Why not?
I
100.
mean, we
would
weren't
make
able to
the-
put our carbon activated filter into service until we had the water tested coming out of it to make sure it was
I
Yeah,
think
doing
well,
what it's
wise
supposed to.
and we would make the offer with the board's approval to all 117 people who were identified in the survey area. And that's up to them to choose to do that, and we'd work out a mechanism with the low bidder to figure out.
Bill us directly.
They'll bill us directly.
I think that's
That's a no-brainer.
absolutely, we should do that.
Testing
Go ahead, Tommy John.
is fine. What is our first step, or do you have recommendations as far as a water supply district? I think this is really where we should be putting our energy.
If you're asking for myself, John?
I mean, I have my ideas, but
Yeah,
what's,
I would argue for including the areas where we currently know there are issues. I'm
Mhm.
looking at the map here. And for us, the town of Southampton, it would be the existing Damascus area and the green area immediately north of it. It would seem to be a little foolish to eliminate that right now, because there's likely to be 2 or 3 people that get some positive testing in that area, and the main extensions would not be significantly higher. I would consider myself the area to the west, but that is almost exclusively the village of Quogue. So it wouldn't be my place to make a recommendation about what they should do, but the board may want to enter into a conversation to partner with them in some way if we wanted to
I'm
expand.
not sure I understand the question. So are you
going with 12C as
suggesting to
opposed to
pay
this?
for the water main in this area, we would tax just these individuals, or rather than doing a town-wide?
No, he's asking about.
like, what's the recommendation to do this? I think, either we're going to have to do it locally in these purple-colored areas, or whatever
I
area.
think if we're gonna do this, we'd have to kind of go the East Hampton route and spread at least the bulk of the cost town-wide for
Using
that $1 million.
12C.
Using 12C.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, you're basically taking a small group of people, most of who've already paid for their own infrastructure, and asked them to shoulder the burden of some of the residents within that small district. I think I'd rather just accept that, we have, these people there's a crisis in this area of, potential contamination, and that we go ahead townwide, create this, accept the village, and put the water main in with the hope that we're able to receive grant money or identify, the responsible party at some point and have it paid for.
I agree, and I think that would give us a latitude to act in the future in other areas that may experience similar
And I
issues.
didn't mean to, my response to your question, Tommy John, was almost exactly what Jay just said. I think the water supply district should be focused on this area,
Mhm.
but the taxing component has to be
Right.
town-wide.
Can you go get us some more
If
clarity on the
that's a-
surcharge issue?
Say again?
Can you get us more clarity on the infrastructure issue? Because obviously, if people are going to have an issue with paying twice, I want to be able to give some specific.
Well, I'm not sure I'm answering your question, Christine.
The surcharge issue for the infrastructure.
I can tell you what the cost would be for all of the residents in the Damascus area that currently don't use public water, what the surcharge to them would be if they decided to.
No, I want clarity in that if it were a town-wide supply area, that those that would be paying into this who already are paying for infrastructure costs in the form of a surcharge.
And the water bill.
On their water bill, how that would be accounted for in the context of now everybody joining in, so that those people are now, everyone's sharing, or that's being pulled out, or how is that going to work to have, to be able to respond to people or say, wait a minute, I'm already paying, now you're asking me to pay again for.
I don't think that you're going to be able to, I think you're going to have, that's what part of she laid that out in the first comments.
Then we need that.
That was her first.
Yeah, some cost.
Then we need a cost, I need to know what that is.
Well, so if we are able to get to 60% funding, so you're down to 40%, so 400,000, you could crunch that number, right? That's
Town outside a village, how much each resident will
Yeah.
pay. It doesn't even come to a fraction of
it's
what
gotta be like
decimal.
a dollar a resident, something in that range.
Whatever, but
That's good to know,
the
though.
concept, though, is still the same. If you're living in North Sea, you're going to be paying a portion of this.
Yes.
And if you're living there
It's
with
good to
the
know
water
what the
main,
number is, like how is it gonna affect my
Like
tax
how
bill
much
or whatever.
500,000 is on a per
Yeah.
thousand of assessed
So
value.
You
that's
have
not
50,000
assumed to be
parcels, you're-
a big figure,
I
the
can
reality.
I can tell
reality
you.
is-
All of that
So
would
it's-
have to.
But you're spreading it out over 10 or 15 years, so it's basically like 50,000 a year or something.
I'm telling you, it's not even a fraction, it's going to come up if you add it
So
up. over-
50,000 over 50,000 households is gonna be like $1 a
And
house.
all of those are very good
Not easy.
questions, and all of that would have to be laid out in a map plan and
Right,
report.
right.
So you would never be voting on anything without the answers to those questions. That would all be laid out in your map plan and report.
there's some advantages, and I don't love the idea of creating a new tax district, but these emerging contaminants seem to be popping up in different places. We're gonna probably face this again, and to have a tool that we could act quickly to address these problems as they came up, I think would be useful. So I'm sort of inclined to take the steps toward creating that townwide, accepting the villages, what do we call it, a water protection district or?
Water supply.
Water supply.
If you do it under Article 12A, it's a water supply district. Under 12C, you can call it a water improvement.
Water improvement district. I don't love that we have to do that. It probably is, a prudent measure at this point. It's a lot of work, isn't it?
It is,
Talking
but
about
that's
townwide.
Townwide, so you have to do the map plan and report and all of that.
map plan report, which would identify all of those costs, the boundaries, obviously, what it means to the taxpayers. Then the second step would be your public hearing. Third step would be your resolution authorizing it, subject to permissive referendum.
We'll need it if we get the grant. We're applying for this grant, right? If we get the grant and we have to put in $400,000, we need a mechanism to put that $400,000 in.
Well, and we have to ask the
this.
question, which I don't know the answer to. None of what we're talking here can be accomplished by January 11th. And I have to ask the question, and I would turn to our grant writer, that can we submit an application with, we plan to?
Well, we're in the process of.
And that's the question, but, grants sometimes have peculiarities in them that we don't anticipate, so we want to address that question before.
And it's a pretty competitive grant.
Actually, this is not a competitive grant, Jim, as I understand it.
Okay, good.
They have a pool of money, and they will evaluate all of the applications come January 12th, I guess, and say this grant application from the town of Southampton deserves 20% of the available funds. Some other, Hoosick Falls, New York deserves 30% of the available funds, so they will allocate what's available funds based on the grant. So
it sounds like they would accept a qualified application.
It sounds that way, but I don't want to make any assumptions. We've done that in the past and proven ourselves incorrect.
Just another thing to think about is the fact that it's 400,000 today with 40, but what happens, because we have, as we know, little pockets of different, like that number could balloon rapidly and easily over the next several weeks to months. What does that do to how are we giving people a fair assessment of what their assessment will be
that's actually
based on?
a good question, Kathleen. I don't know if Kathleen can even answer that.
Anybody can answer it.
Well, like most of your improvement districts, you base your cost on the maximum amount proposed to be expended.
Right.
And if that changes, then we go back out to public hearing, we start that process. We have to obviously notify the people within the district.
And that would be townwide?
If that's how you choose to do it. So we would have to go back out to public hearing.
But that's why I asked the question originally, to try to frame what that actually could be, potentially could be, how many customers are on well water, as opposed to everyone else.
You have to look at that.
What's really complicated here
Even
is,
if we get an approximation, I think gives us at least.
this is a kind of a new territory. Like, we're not, in general, we're a town, we're not in a utility supply business. We don't supply electricity, we don't supply gas, and we don't supply water. Here we're kind of entering into this new area. We're going to use taxpayer money to put in water mains for people. Ultimately, it's because we have these emerging contaminants, and we are going to try to figure out how they got in the water. We have a suit against the companies that manufacture them. We have ongoing investigations, both at, the Damascus Road landfill, but the county is doing this work at Gabreski Airport. At some point, there might, like the MTBE issue, there might be some money that we get back, and then I guess we can reimburse these taxpayers. If they carried some of the cost of this infrastructure, we can give a credit back on their tax bill as well, right, Len?
Yeah, but also the larger you make it, the more complicated you do make it. And the fact that you have to go back to a whole new public hearing and the whole process every time you spend additional money leads me to say, why make it that big to begin with? Limit the size. And then if you need to expand at some future date, to other areas, just then do a public hearing for those areas and create those new districts.
If we limit
This way you can isolate the problem now, address the problem now. and
Well, you
then
still have
see
to
where-
create that townwide thing as a mechanism.
Say make it
So
smaller.
you're arguing against
well,
it.
You
Can I
confuse
ask a question for a
these,
second?
This,
right?
the water supply area
It's a
can
much
be the
bigger issue.
smaller area. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be a larger area. This way you,
You could limit it to the magenta and the green, and
Exactly.
just do a benefit on the magenta.
Would that be quicker to establish
That's what I
Yeah.
was trying to say earlier.
None
Yeah,
of,
now I understand what you were saying.
than a townwide?
Yeah,
no,
do
I
this.
don't
It would be
think
the same.
so,
Still need the same
because
mechanism
you
for
still, all of this requires an engineered map plan and report, a public hearing. It's just how you structure it. I don't know, I can't tell you that one would be faster than the other. It's a
Okay.
process.
Don't you have them both though, Kathleen? That's was my understanding, is basically you create the townwide accepting the village district, and then the benefit area.
You don't have to do
You
townwide, though.
define, and so that the people in the benefit area where the water main is going, they pay a little bit more than everybody else. Everybody pays ad valorem, and these people pay ad valorem plus a little bit more.
But supply area doesn't have to be town. It can be
Right, I think you're
a
saying,
group
I
of
think you're
things.
both saying the
Yeah,
same
I'm trying to
thing.
explain.
but
what
I
the-
think
It could be
part
just
is
the
if it-
street, basically where the water main is going.
Yeah, you can
But-
have a couple of different hamlets in it or not. It doesn't have to be townwide to be the supply area, and you can still then vector down into a smaller district area within that based on benefit.
But I think what I'm
that correct?
hearing, correct me if I'm wrong.
It is, sorry.
Well, no, I mean, I think you're about to answer the same question I was going to ask. If it's the cost and the amount of work that goes into establishing the townwide district is going to be almost the same. It sounds like what you're saying to me as we do these minor districts. So sort of the question in front of us is, what makes sense to do the larger?
Right, that's
or
just a
do it
policy
once and not do,
consider,
yeah.
it's a policy issue that you
And I
have to
think,
decide.
does that get your question?
Assuming
With
we-
Article
assuming-
9.
Assuming we put this together and we do this, there's still no guarantee that the people who live on that street will connect,
Correct.
right? Because we already have water mains and people who are on private wells who have chosen not to connect. Maybe it's a financial issue, maybe it's just a desire,
Well,
or maybe they're
that's why,
testing their well is okay.
A week or two ago, when we met with the board on that topic, we had drafted a letter which Mr. Bouvier asked for, and I sent copies around, from the Suffolk County Water Authority to those people who have access to existing mains. Would they be interested in connecting to those mains, and here's the process for doing so. We have not sent that letter out as yet because there was a request that we consider adding the dimension of the retesting of your water, if you would like to include in that same letter rather than sending
Right.
two different letters, which it sounds like the board is okay with doing that. So we can add that language to the letter and then get that letter out to the 45 or so people who currently have access and see what their responses are. Because right now, the service line connection under the current circumstances would be on the property owner, because we don't have the taxing district in place.
Okay.
So that letter today will say.
Go ahead, and then
pay
let's
the
try,
surcharge.
let's try to make a decision or two.
Just a question relative to that specific point, and it's a legal issue, and I'm not suggesting we do something that's not legal, but I just want to understand it. If we were to have declared some type of an emergency or something like that, does that in and of itself have the legal significance to then substantiate bearing the cost on an individual basis as opposed to a district?
Arguably, yes,
Yes,
it certainly goes a long way. Mhm.
Right, that's sort of like when we plow snow on private roads in a snow emergency, we're able to spend money on private property.
Right, you always have to be governed by the unconstitutional gift provision of the New York State Constitution, right? You can't give taxpayers a gift of public funds. So you're only authorized to give those funds when the statute allows you to do so. And so that's why we're always looking for the authority in the state statute to let us spend public dollars.
And I believe East Hampton did, because I read a lot of the newspaper stories, they did declare some sort of emergency.
I believe they did.
Is there a standard for that,
So,
that we should
Do we
look
need to
at?
do that as part of this?
I can't answer
Not
that
as
question
part
for
of this,
you.
but
That
we
is
could do
a,
instead of.
that is a policy decision that you need to make based on the information that you have from the Suffolk County Health Department and the issues that you have to think about.
And would that allow us to help those people who, with their,
Yes, with their
from
hookups.
main to tap in their house costs?
Everything is challengeable, but it would be a justification for doing so.
you're saying that that may be the way to get the
There are.
the
From the
hookup.
road to the
There are
they're
risks
safe.
that come with a declaration like that we can, I'd caution you to
I think
think
it
about.
sounded like there was a little confusion on how the water supply area taxation and air and the whole town outside of village taxation. I seem to see, maybe you can just re-clarify those two.
I thought we cleared that up.
No, Jay was mentioning something different. That's why I didn't hear that.
Well, there's a number of things we're talking about, but you're talking about the whole town outside of village to pay for these water
Mains, and then also creating a supply district that's much smaller.
And then,
Right, but that's
a
when.
supply district that's much smaller, but
Say it.
also as a mechanism by, you said earlier, Kathleen, that everybody would pay ad valorem, but you could also have a benefit component to the water main. I thought you were saying.
Yeah, that's correct, I did say
So
that.
that they pay a little bit more if you're on the street with the water main, and then everybody pays.
I think it's the semantics of using the words two districts or district. Under 12C, it's called a water improvement, and you're paying for your water improvement if you'd like. You can do all town outside of village, total ad valorem. You can do just benefit, or you can do a combination.
But you could also do hamlets within, different hamlets within, as opposed to the whole town area as a supply
Yeah.
area. You
Yes,
don't have to do whole town
absolutely.
outside of villages. You
Under
can
the
go out,
benefit
you can put
aspect.
the-
I'm not sure what you're saying, so you
Ad
could
valorem.
basically say, instead of doing a whole town outside the village, you say, okay, East Quogue is the,
East Quogue, let's say, for argument's sake, East Quogue and, say this was not a village, East Quogue, Quogue, and whatever. You can make that the supply area. You could do a smaller district in East Quogue. The supply area would be based on ad valorem
Don't
and
use
the.
the word district. Just
Sorry.
say
and that would pay for
Supply area
that
and the
$1 million
small
water main, whatever?
Yeah.
Once you identify a specific supply area that's benefited, they may only be taxed on a benefit basis.
Correct. Everybody else is ad valorem.
Then ad valorem outside. If under 12C, you'd like to say that the entire town is going to be benefit from a water improvement, then you could do that ad valorem. So it's a
Well, it
little
sounds like
tricky.
12C lets you do
Semantics.
both.
12C lets you do both.
Or a combination.
Yeah.
12A is what you're used to, right? So in
Right.
12A, you're always making a finding that the people within that district are specifically benefiting.
Well, it sounds to me like 12C is the way to go here, to do it townwide, with the exception of the village, and then get the water main in place, and have the people on the street of the water main pay a piece that's on a benefit basis, and everybody else is ad valorem. Seems like the right thing to do.
It's up to the board. I can't answer that.
That's kind of where we came in.
And can I just go back quickly and about the possible retesting? I've heard from a lot of residents from East Quogue. I think that they would appreciate that. But I've also heard that they feel they haven't been getting updates from us. I don't know whether that's true or not, but perhaps we can do some sort of update as to where we are, what we've been doing to try to address their issues.
So,
That's a yes.
so,
Everyone's like silently nodding.
everybody's okay with the water test. You've identified where the funding is gonna come from, Lynn?
No.
It's cable franchise fees or something, but we're gonna.
I'm not worried about the money. That's
It's like
not a-
$15,000, $20,000. Yeah, so
You'll
let's
be-
let's
some
make
point,
that.
At some point, you're going to have a resolution in front
Right,
of
for
you.
the
All right,
next
so
meeting. Put
can
that on the
I,
next meeting
let's
would be
make
good.
that decision first. Everybody is okay
Yes.
with funding
Yes.
a second round of testing in that area? Okay? Yes, no objections, okay. So let's decide what we want to do about this water main, whether we want to start taking the steps to create this,
I think we have questions that need to be answered
Water
still,
district.
right now.
so.
I want some
We need
advice
to know
on
the
this, on an
cost.
emergency
Obviously,
thing.
it's
I
going to
want,
be pennies on the dollar, and we need to know.
Give a general
some idea
direction where we
what
want to go, but we
Scoping
have
the
to-
problem.
Yes.
So is everybody conceptually okay with moving forward under 12C with this?
Yes.
Yes, I am too. John, are you?
Yeah, I'm qualified with getting some of those
Getting
answers.
some more information.
But you can't adopt it without that information, right, Captain?
Right,
Yeah,
but
we need a map plan. I think we'll talk about authorizing a map plan and report and when the
yeah,
cost
it
of
just
that will
feels
come from.
more comfortable
Yep.
So can we
if I
keep,
have that early rather than later.
so what are the unanswered questions now?
Well, for me, the lack of clarity that I have is 12C is a plan that the board conceptually agrees to address the costs associated with extending the main. the cost associated with any individual connecting to that main is not addressed. Am I correct about that?
You're going
So
to
right
continue
now,
to research that piece.
Mr. and Mrs. Jones who live on that street want to connect to their main, that cost is up to them.
I'd
We'll
also
bring
like
the
to-
main to your step.
Right.
But you are paying.
Well, not to the
Which
door,
is-
to the
Well, I'd
street.
also like to know whether or not what's going on here would qualify for some type of emergency that would cover the whole thing.
Right. Yep.
And what are we spinning our wheels about? I mean, if it qualifies and it's legitimate, then it is what it is.
That's a fair question,
To cover the whole
Data
thing.
right now is.
What are you
The
talking about?
extension
In other
and
words,
the
we
hookup
cover the
to
whole
their
thing.
sink.
Like the
The
town,
extension and the hookup.
I don't
the town
understand.
funds
Yeah.
cover the whole, well, that's
general
just another
fund.
version of a.
Could you
town
cover
budget.
everything?
If it's a-
Some emergency
Or do a loan
classification.
Yeah.
That's not what happened, again, that's not what happened in East Hampton.
I'm not using East Hampton as my standard bearer. I'm just saying if we were by ourselves and this
You want the
happened,
town to
if
fund
there were
the
a way
whole
to
thing.
if we could pay for the 1.2 out of the extension out of the CPF or however we're going to do that, and then be able to justify that this is not an unconstitutional gift by
And we
giving
don't-
these people
yeah,
the ability
right.
to tap in because there is a legitimate bona fide emergency in this situation, or it meets some standard, I'm using the word emergency not to panic anybody, whatever the standard is, that it would qualify for, that we can say legitimately, this is not an unconstitutional gift. We are in
So
one of our
literally pay
basic
for that
things to
hookup.
do is to provide for safe and the general welfare of the
And-
public. I
and-
mean,
And I think it's the exact right question, in my opinion. And what is that standard? And do we have the data that tells that
that's
we
what I
can
want.
meet that standard?
That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know.
That's a complicated
Need a
question.
piece
So
of-
I like the thinking that maybe we would pay not only for the water main through this larger district, but also the hookups.
I'm not talking about through a larger district necessarily, because it sounds like through the grant
no.
funding and everything else, we can do that.
Yeah,
It's
main
really
part
the
is
problem is the
easier
individual
part of
hook,
the
yeah.
whole
it's
thing.
the
Well, I'm not sure the
individual
grant, the
hookup.
grant,
put in a
the
main
CPF
if
program
nobody
isn't
can
going to
afford
allow
to
the
hook
hookup.
up.
No.
Right, but that's the point. We can pay for it.
So the higher cost is the hookup.
Is, I think, I know it's my question, I don't speak for anyone else. The main, in my opinion, is the easier lift here.
Yes.
The hookup from the main to the individual home, including the tap fee, the service line, and the surcharge, is the bigger problem. What I
Which is,
believe Christine-
sorry to interrupt,
They
you,
won't have the
which is
surcharge.
also every other resident in the town of Southampton paid that on their own already.
I get that, John, but.
We have information now, but we have information
and
now that we didn't have
We
before.
can address that,
Yeah, but
I
that's an
think.
important point.
We have
If
information we didn't have
Christine's
before.
question is, how can we amortize that additional expense through some mechanism, perhaps meeting some
Even if it's that they pay
emergency
back,
criteria?
even if they pay back.
Because those people would, in my approach to this, they would not be forgiven that charge.
Right.
We would amortize the tap fee, the surcharge, and the connect fee, just like everybody else in the district.
There is no
Like when we
surcharge.
do a
The
loan
benefit
for
would
affordable
be-
housing.
And that's fine, I just want to make that
They would get
point.
it through
That's
some
not what you, that's not what
amortized.
you initially said.
Just Frank, if you
No,
put the water main in, there
we
would
wouldn't
be
pay
a
for it.
surcharge.
I'm using broad terms.
But-
Pay for it or they pay it back. I said a
That would
loan
have, the
initially.
that's
water
two
main
big
would be a paid for in full,
If we have a bona fide emergency.
so they're
I
just
think we
paying
could
the
substantiate
tap
either
fee
in my mind.
and the
But I
extension.
would prefer
But
them to pay
John's
back.
point of fairness, I think that was the point that you're
The
raising.
second point is what I think we can do.
We
I don't know
could-
Great.
what-
You could add a surcharge
First
into.
one.
We have two
It's already been
conversations.
computed.
I'd like to hear them both.
So the advantage
That
to
was
the
important. I
client,
want-
if you will, the customer, the citizen, is that instead of coming up with laying 10 grand out of your pocket, we're going to help you through this mechanism that possibly addresses the question that Christine raises, where we could amortize the cost you would otherwise have to bear in one lump sum through a loan system that the town could authorize. In fairness to everyone else who's already paid a tap fee, a surcharge fee, and a line connection, a service line connection, I think that charge should go to everybody in that community, but defrayed through this new mechanism that we're establishing, because we're dealing with a potential small e emergency that we have
Right.
established the criteria
And we
for,
do-
and we know.
But
we meet
Kathleen
that
hasn't
criteria.
arrived at a way to do that yet.
Not yet.
Well, we're just bringing it up, but we do this, it's similar to what we do under the enabling legislation for home improvements when we have through CDBG funds where we advance loans so that people can do, if they're income eligible, to retrofit their homes, if they have a disability or things like
Yeah, we
that.
just
But we
did
have-
The answer in general, though, it's
No,
definitely
no,
started
that's
talking
true.
about.
Community benefit. is liens,
Correct,
but
that's
the other.
pursuant to an
To a-
Now,
authorized.
yes, enabling legislation.
Right.
I
The answer
understand
is
that. That's why
generally
I'm-
no. You
Money
can't
that
do
comes from a
anything in the
grant.
state Unless there's a law that allows you to do it.
Right,
Yeah,
we
I
wanted
know
to
that.
do
Said
this,
enabling
we
legislation.
wanted to
So I don't
front the
think we
money
have
for the IA systems.
it's
We
an
can't do that
emergency.
either. There's no authorizing legislation. So we have to either get authorizing legislation, or it may be a way through an emergency declaration. We also have to be careful, and this is, I think, where it gets a little bit dicey. If that property currently, doesn't have a detection, or it's considered safe drinking water, it's maybe 7 parts per trillion, the Suffolk County Health Department or the Hampton Bays Water Authority, they could supply water that has 7 parts per trillion. That's considered drinkable water. So if we're saying we're going to use these funds to do this connection, and the property has drinkable water, that's, I think, that could be a problem.
Well,
How do we
I wanna-
justify it when it's perfectly good drinking water?
It's not connected to the comments that you just made, Jay, but and I want to cloud the issue further, but
What do you?
if we find a mechanism that can successfully allow us to amortize those total costs for these new connections to the water main, a problem that I think is arising right now is Suffolk County Water Authority will provide all of that work. They will connect your house to the street, they'll put in the tap, they'll compute the service charge. They are bound by prevailing wage criteria. So their cost to do that, I'll make up a number, might be $5,000. I can go to Hardy Plumbing and get a quote myself that's much less than $5,000.
Or other qualified plumbers.
Or other qualified plumbers.
Okay.
Who shall remain nameless.
Got a card?
The question then is,
No.
if Suffolk County,
But there are many.
seems to be percolating up right now, I think. If Suffolk County Water Authority does the work, they'll send us a bill, we pay them.
Right.
If some unnamed private plumber does the work and bills the client, does the client submit to us for a rebate? Do we pay that individual plumber? How do we handle the payment? If I'm able to do it privately at a better cost, that's to my advantage. I don't want to prevent any private homeowner from that. But how do we fit that into the mechanism? Paying an agency like Suffolk County Water Authority under a contract.
Well,
That
we're,
is-
we're about to do that with rebates under the CPF.
I'm
Would
just
it-
saying,
just
Can you
changed it.
it's a
conflate
different
those?
wrinkle.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
can you conflate that legislation?
I don't
I
know,
would
John.
suggest
I think
that
it's
we
a
do
different
this.
wrinkle, and we've heard from town employees or East Hampton residents who have said, I'm more interested in getting that private certified plumbing company in to do it because they're doing it at a third of the cost.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a mechanism where they're getting reimbursed for doing it privately rather than through
I
the
think
Yeah,
in East
so we-
Hampton,
if-
in East Hampton they are. Apparently you have
If you
to-
reimburse somebody,
Wouldn't be
though,
reimbursing anybody anyway.
if you write the check to the homeowner, we're going to have to issue a 1099.
1099, that's what happened with the.
Well, it's just,
No,
it
I
adds-
don't know that you have to.
Not that East Hampton is.
Yeah, we
Then we
were,
looked into that issue, right?
And the answer
And
was
the
we
answer
would
was
issue a
yes.
1099.
I thought certain things
that's
were
why
tax
we're now
exempt.
gonna pay the
No,
vendors.
no, not for that. If we paid the
Given
vendor
that option,
directly, I
that's
think we
a
could get
complication,
around
we
that.
should know the answer.
All right.
I think we
But
need
I-
some legal
about to do
advice
that.
I
too,
think
so
in East
perhaps
Hampton,
an executive
and I-
session.
Number of
would be
factors
good,
we have to
yeah.
review.
I have to be careful. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think in East Hampton, the homeowners are getting the hookups, and they have to sign some sort of affidavit about, that this work was done at their property, and here's the receipts, and then they put that in for reimbursal somehow. And I don't know if it's, maybe it gets reimbursed and then charged back in the tax bill.
I don't know who answers that.
I'd like to bring something else up. In Noyak, pretty close to a vegetative waste facility, privately owned, there is a street that had a broken cistern, and the Suffolk County Water Authority is looking or has given the homeowners an estimate on what it would cost them to run a water main up their street. And each homeowner there would have to pay $7,488. And that's happening now.
For the extension or the individual hookup?
This is the extension
With the tap-in.
without a hookup.
Right. But
No.
but that's not related to a contamination issue.
It is not.
That's just the regular water
But
main.
the piece of information that I added in the beginning, we are going to be asked by others in the future who are going to be in similar circumstances, perhaps, So we
can
need to take
sort
that
of
into
cross bridge when we
consideration.
get there. Right now, we know that this is an impacted area. In the future, we might find that there's other impacted areas. That's possible. We'll have to wrestle with that when we get there, but maybe we'll have laid the framework in this case. So we've made a decision on the first piece, which is the retesting. In here, it sounds like we're getting close to a decision. We're kind of conceptually okay with moving forward with under 12C. I don't know what other outstanding questions the board needs answers, but.
We just went through a whole bunch
Yeah.
of them.
So Kathleen, do you want to reschedule another work session for next
I
week?
think we need an exec session before we do another work
Okay.
session, because
Yeah,
there's
we'll
a
do that
number
as
of
well.
outstanding legal things I'd like some advice on.
I'll be available to the board.
All right, so Janice, can we put this on for next week's work session again? So-
Exec session.
Yeah, Well, we'll put it on for executive session even today, possibly, we can discuss it.
Well, I don't know if we're going to be able to gather any new information that would.
Right, we need the information
Okay,
to talk
so
about.
we'll put it
We're also
on,
we're waiting for some information from our bond council, and
Right, yeah.
it still has to cook.
Yeah.
all right, so we'll probably put it on for both open and executive next week. All right?
Sauce isn't ready.
I just want to make sure it continues to move forward.
We could schedule a meeting earlier. I mean, we, I think, need to make a decision on this soon.
I thought I could too.
Well, as soon as we get the information, I think is part of that, driving that, so.
I think in the interest of communicating effort on the part of the board, I'm going to make this recommendation that we consider, we can send out a letter as early as next week to all of the residents in that community that we are offering them the opportunity to retest their water. And hold off on the water main information connection because we have too many unanswered questions that I'm sure any intelligent resident of the community is going to get on the phone and call us right away. And I'd hate to have to say to them, I don't know the answer to your question.
Well, I think we are.
Let's offer the opportunity to retest.
We certainly are exploring the creation of a district that could pay for that water main.
We're doing, and we can include that, Jay, but to offer that they should connect, they have the opportunity to connect right now, which we could do. We're immediately going to get questions from how am I going to connect to the street once it's there? We'll go ahead with the grant application. That'll continue to move forward, but as a gesture of goodwill and public safety concern that the board has for the community, we are going to immediately give you the opportunity to retest your water. And you will get a copy of the results, we'll get a copy of the results, and that retesting can only help our effort to move forward and may provide the data that we need to substantiate the question that you have, Christine, about is there some emergency that we can evidence through this retesting data. So there's some real value in doing it, both from a communication to our constituents and also providing hard data that can help us in any application in the future. If the board's okay with that, I think.
I'm
Yeah,
okay
You
with
can do
that.
that tomorrow.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yes,
ASAP.
we'll get that out as quick as possible. And we'll get more, try to get some of the questions answered.
With that guy to make sure you-
My inclination is to try to get this town-wide district put together so we could do these types of things, so.
And whether you can deliver a qualified grant application too, that's part of that.
Right.
Okay? I'm
All
good.
right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, so we'll just do a couple quick updates. So last night was the meeting, you all were there with Suffolk County Water Authority. We'll have another one on December 18th at 7:30. I want to say there was some 100 people who came last night. Some good questions were asked. The survey continues to be available online. One of the things that was brought up was, could we do a public vote? And I don't know of a mechanism that would allow for public vote. You can only put certain things on the ballot for public vote. But I think there may be ways to try to solicit more community input than the survey. So I think we need to think about how we can, give people, more of an opportunity to say whether they think it's a good idea or not. And there's people I think are still, that was the first presentation publicly, to the community by the Water Authority. So I think people need time to, to digest the information.
I think you need like a fact sheet too, I think would be, because the survey frames questions for people to answer, but they're not getting the information upon which to give their answers. I think that there should be a fact
The
sheet.
pamphlet was a fact sheet.
That went out with the survey? Okay.
No,
I
it was mailed to
I
everybody.
fielded a lot of questions even this morning.
No,
That seemingly should have been already part of the, like, people didn't have that information.
The pamphlet was pretty good.
The survey
that
was
was last
put out, the survey was put online before most of us got our brochures, but the
Right.
brochures did come the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the brochure went to every customer.
All right, well, a lot of people were asking questions even this
Right.
morning about basic information that they should have had. So
Right. So, yeah, we did it to every customer, got that pamphlet.
is that online? Is the brochure
Yes.
online? Okay, good.
I have a question about the management of the Hampton Bays Water District and the Suffolk County Water Authority. A lot of the information that we're getting is produced by us and the Water Authority. And some of the questions that we got last night were questions regarding management of the current water district. And we are the commissioners. We're not there on a day-to-day basis. And I was wondering, to what extent should the Hampton Bays Water District management be part of the open sessions, question and basic information? It seemed like it was us, which, we are the commissioners, but let's face it, we're here today, we're not in the water district. We don't do the day-to-day water district things. And I just think that they need to be part of this on a greater level.
No, we did, as you know, ask the current management, the admin at the water district to, to do some sort of presentation as to, how the water district operates, make their case for basically not changing anything. Not to disparage the Suffolk County Water Authority, but why this is the best management scenario. I'm hopefully at the next meeting on the 18th, the Robbie King or some of the people who he designates there will make that type of presentation.
They were
That would-
invited to do so
Yeah.
last night. They declined.
Right, so,
I'm sure they've done capital improvements. We just, perhaps the public should be made aware of those
Well,
capital
they
improvements.
do come
that
like
they have.
quarterly and give us updates when they're doing a capital improvement or stuff like
Mhm.
that. But
Well, in this venue at this time.
right, it would be nice to hear from them and
Right.
listen to what they're.
Perhaps we can suggest they can put together some sort of list or a brochure of their own.
right, they've, done a lot of water main repairs. They fixed that broken pipe. That was a complicated pipe break under Shinnecock Bay.
Right.
And they were able to provide water to Dune Road over the Ponquag Bridge with fire hoses. That was kind of some quick measures they took. They were able to secure a grant for the carbon filtration. Didn't cover all of it, but I think about $750,000 of it. I think that the things that are going well, they ought to be highlighted. Some of the steps that they're taking to improve water quality, the public ought to know. I think there's a sense in Hampton Bays that the water, there's issues about the water. People fear that, they can't drink the water. So no matter what, even if it's perfectly safe, we have a PR issue that we've got to somehow restore confidence. Whether we go with Suffolk County Water Authority or stay with the current management, that you can drink the water there, you can bathe in the water, you can shower in the water. We have to, because I don't think it's one or two people. I think there's a lot of people who are drinking bottled water right now, even though they're paying for water. So we have a problem. And whether it's just a perception problem or it's a real problem, whether there are issues with the water quality. Certainly if it's discolored, I'm not going to advise anyone to drink discolored water. I wouldn't drink it. So.
Well, I think there were a lot of questions that residents had that would have been best directed towards the people who are actually doing the daily work in the Hampton Bays Water District. So I would agree with you, Tom.
Yeah, they should answer those questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Come up to the stage, right?
Well, there seemed to be an impression that Southampton Town runs the water district. And some of the questions, and these are citizens, concerned citizens, we do, we're the commissioners. There is an organization, administration, and labor in the water district itself. So when I hear questions like, why didn't you, boom, and some of those questions, I think, were best suited for the people who actually work in the water district. So that
the details, the specifics of it.
Yeah, they should be on the stage answering questions.
Or at the very least, helping us get all the information that we need so that we can make an informed decision. Because, let's be honest, there are people that are talking about, the fix is in, they're going with the water authority, this is whatever. And, from my perspective, and I'm sure the rest of the board, we're really trying to get all the information that we can right now so that we can make an informed decision and do the right thing by the people, and so that we can carry our responsibilities out in a diligent fashion, which is all we're trying to do.
Totally agree with you on that, Christine.
Exactly. All right, good. Good point, Tommy John. All right, so that was last night. Again, so you can still take the survey, but we also have hard copies of the 300 answers we had so far. But I do think we should think about how we can do more outreach. And try to get we might end up with 500 survey respondents, but there's 6,000 customers, so statistically it might be a good sample size, but I still would like to have as much input as possible, so we can continue that part of the conversation. The restoration of the old Ponquag Bridge fishing pier is complete. It was a $1.9 million renovation featuring new bulkheads, recreational boating ramps, and a new deck and handrails. The south pier is primarily intended for divers, the north pier for fishing. We're going to do an official grand opening slated for the spring when the diving community is planning an underwater ribbon cutting.
Uh-oh. Did I get my wetsuit out?
I guess so. All right, the town board, we adopted a $102.7 million budget for 2019 on November 20th. Tax rate decrease of $1.39 per 1,000 of assessed value. Roughly 1% decrease in the tax rate. So that's just an update. You all knew that. There was a big duck lighting last night. I was not able to attend. I don't think any of us were able to attend. Any other updates? I'll go to you guys. Any liaison reports from CACs? I know some Bridgehampton CAC, they discussed the rules, right?
They did.
We were there, right?
I
was not able to attend that. Do you want to tell us
yeah,
how that's
they're interested in some of the changes of the operating procedures of the CACs that we're looking at. I was also at the Noyak CAC, and they are concerned. They expressed a desire to give input in the land use boards, the ZBA and the planning board. That was, one of the takeaways. And as the operating procedures are written now, it says that the CACs should advise the town board on town board issues. Their question was that a lot of these developments and applications for developments that are going in are some of the things that they're concerned most about. Some of them were talking about disbanding. One other point that they brought up is that if they would like the town board, if they would like to give more, if they would like us to have them give input, to the town board, then we should be sending them out more information about town board issues. That was some of the feedback that I got.
So have we resolved this issue? I mean, so the issue with the planning, with the land use boards, since, we, the town board, created the CACs to advise the town board, so they're sort of an extension of us, but we've also delegated our decision-making power on land use decisions to the planning board and to the zoning board, where, my understanding is we're not supposed to be, trying to influence the decisions. Can a board that we created to advise us influence the decisions? Not whether they should or whether it's ethically and legal to do that. I think
Our
that,
town attorney is working on that now.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I think that's the crux of the matter.
Okay, all right. We're not trying to take away their rights as citizens, we want their input. We want to know what they think in terms of how the future of their hamlet unfolds. We just want to make sure that we're not crossing a, legal line there. All right.
And I'll keep everybody updated when I hear back from town attorney.
Any other, I think it's important that the liaisons to the CACs share the information if a particular area has a problem with something or has a concern about something, that all 5 town board members are aware of that. So
We do that on a regular basis.
Okay,
Yeah, I think,
so-
and I also, the chairs of the CRCs are supposed to speak to all of the town board members when they send in things to let us know what's going on through the
Okay.
minutes, et cetera.
But, but if a liaison is aware of a particular concern that's brewing in a community, to just use these update, at work sessions to bring it to everybody's attention. Any other announcements or updates?
Yeah, Tommy John and I yesterday went to a press conference that Supervisor
FAA.
Lauren Jen Smith had in, where were we? In Jamesport. Actually, it came up Riverhead.
Iron
I'm like,
Point.
"Geez." Yeah, Iron Point. It was a beautiful spot. But in any event, where we all.
Iron Pier.
Iron Pier, yeah. There were a lot of people there, and we all spoke to the fact that the FAA has just absolutely irresponsibly just disregarded what the law says in terms of having a public hearing in the East End towns regarding the helicopter noise, and we voiced in unison our displeasure with that we're not going to let it sit like that, and we're going to keep fighting it as best that we can. And it was well attended and covered.
Yeah, I
think.
attended their so-called public hearing. I
That's
think
what we
so.
talked about. It was like an informational.
And, yeah.
We've been doing this for 6 years. I mean, they're dancing
It
us
was like a
around.
science
Send a
fair,
letter
everybody had their.
also.
Yeah, I'm
I think
doing-
any
working on
council
one for all of
person,
us.
Anybody should, in support
Yep.
of that, send something from their office.
Could we organize a public hearing and invite the FAA? Because I think the public really wants to vent. They want to say how their
We
lives
have a
have
town
been.
hall. We
Exactly.
our task force.
Rather
we do
than,
it
I
here.
mean, I think we should pressure them to hold the hearing, but we could hold a hearing and invite the FAA.
We could do that. They did that in East Hampton, and there were
What if
about
they
500 or
don't
600
come?
people there, and the FAA just sat there politely and said nothing, which is what has been the MO. But that's a great
Right.
idea. Why not?
All right, I mean, should we do it as Southampton Town, or should we try to do it as the region?
We should probably maybe join up.
Yeah, well, I'm chair of the East End Supervisors and Mayors Association. Maybe at the next meeting, I have one, I think, in December.
Yeah, bring that up.
Bring it up, and maybe,
The public comment period ends January 2nd, but I would, if we can do it before or even.
It's an
Even after.
arbitrary
If it's
number.
not-
Even after.
Right.
Yeah, even after,
Arbitrary
let's just
date,
do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I think that's a good move, so,
There was a lot of input from the East End villages. I remember signing on to a resolution with the Village of North Haven opposing the helicopter noise, and there were representatives from villages who were there yesterday on the North and South Fork.
I think the fact that each of the towns has actually established a helicopter noise
Advisory
committee,
committee, right.
underscores how important
And
it is.
the technical responses that we have within our own GIS,
Mhm.
trying to track it, to me, it's unfathomable that the FAA would not do this
Mhm.
and abrogate their responsibilities in this regard, so.
what would be the best place to hold such a hearing? Maybe Riverhead, because it's really impacting the North Fork as well as the South Fork. Maybe that would be.
High school has a big auditorium.
Right, I'm just trying to make it the easiest location for everybody who's impacted to attend. Probably Riverhead, right?
I think so, yeah.
But more of the frustration with what they called the public hearing was there was no opportunity for people to get up to a microphone and speak to a crowd and talk about how their life's impacted. It was just basically, there was a sheet that you could fill out a comment on, but it was basically poster boards of, various FAA rules and things like that. And I think people felt like they were not really given an opportunity to describe the hell that they're living through.
It's partly that, and also partly the fact that they have described it on other occasions in detail, painful detail, and it gets ignored. So you're dealing with, you know, the lack of accessibility to be able to vent, on top of the fact that they have vented and no one's listening. So it's a little bit frustrating.
All right.
Well, then we should talk about the invitees to this as well, from elected officials on down.
Right. I
The
just
public.
think we need to take matters into our own hands. So why don't, you know, I'll work with the Supervisors and Mayors Association to try to host a public hearing. You know, true public comment, and we'll ask our federal reps to be there, you know, state reps, ask everybody.
The FAA.
And the FAA. Okay. And if they don't show up, they don't show up, but we can try.
Just need a microphone and a podium.
And then we'll record it and send them a copy of it.
We've got those.
All right, any other updates? We have a couple executive session items, so CPF type of acquisitions and personnel, some personnel issues as well. So I'll make a motion to end our work session and go into executive session on those two issues.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.